I call this meeting of the University Heights, Cleveland Heights School Board to order. Scott, would you call the roll?
Ms. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Here.
Mr. Hines.
Here.
Ms. Serini.
Here.
Ms. Lewis.
Here, barely. Why won't my zipper work?
We are going to start with awards and recognitions this evening. Dr. Dixon, would you?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So we will start with our recognitions for tonight. I would like to welcome Michelle Stice from the State Auditor's Office. Michelle will come up, please. And she has a wonderful recognition to share with us tonight.
Thank you, thank you. What a pleasure it is to be with all of you this evening, representing State Auditor Dave Yost. I have the pleasure of presenting to the district the highest award for clean audits that our office issues. For fiscal year 2017, the district qualified for the Auditor State Award with distinction. Now, what does that mean? This, right here, the district does a comprehensive annual financial report, which is the highest form of transparency in financial reporting. A clean audit, basically, in our eyes, the qualifiers for this award, is that there was no material citations, no significant deficiencies, no question cost, no ethic referrals, no concerns with public records, and absolutely clean. So, Treasurer, this award is for not only yourself, but all of you, because it really does take a collaborative effort to achieve a clean audit. It's not just one person, it's a team. So this is for all of you. Thank you. Thank you for being trustworthy stewards of taxpayer dollars. You represent your constituents very, very well. Thank you on behalf of Auditor Yost.
Thank you again to Scott and that finance team. Wow, they are mean about finances.
But in the best customer service oriented way.
Yes. So I would like to have our student report. Is this just you with both? Oh, they're here. Our student reporters. So Caroline and Devon, if you would come up and give us highlights of what's happening at the high school.
My notes. Hello, I'm Caroline. I have to apologize, I'm a little sick. All right, so in March, the 21st and through the 24th, the Cleveland Heights Vocal Music Department went on our annual tour. We visited Canada, we went to Toronto. We all got to do a whole bunch of different sightseeing events. We got to see the aquarium, the Great Aquarium of Toronto. We also visited the Science Center. We sang at both. We were a big hit. We also got to visit CN Tower. That was super cool. We got to go all 1,815 feet. We had 2 students afraid of heights. That was a little scary for them. But overall, the trip was really great. We also got to visit a woman. We did a master class, which was with a professor from the University of Toronto. And both her husband and her sons went to Ohio State, which was kind of ironic. So yeah, we had a great connection. That was awesome. Also, the high school is putting on a production of Noises Off. The show dates are, where did I write it? Next week, I think. Where is it? Yes, okay. Next week, the show is put on by Mr. Jones. And he's the director of the show. There are 8 students in total on the 8 students in total, and tickets are about $10, but it's by donation. So however much you give, they'll receive. Thank you.
My name is Devon. The students have been planning another walkout on April 20th. It's the 20th anniversary of the school shooting of Columbine. And students are to walk out at 10. on Friday, on that Friday. More information will be given at some point in time. Is All City Musical coming up, and two of our students, both in the 12th grade, Malcolm White and Hassan Lewis Majid, will be playing in Bring It On at Playhouse Square. And I think the shows are, well, Avid and MSAN are taking 80 students on Wednesday, April 25th. And the shows are from the 25th to the 27th. And it's based off a book written by Jeff Whitty. And there's a summer program going on at the Boys and Girls Club where I work. It's across the street on Washington from the high school. And if you go up there, they'll give you more information, but they have a lot of activities for teens and younger students. Younger kids, and it's just a good place to go. Thank you.
Thank you. So this was something new that we added to our agenda. So every first meeting, our two students will come and inform the board of what's happening at the high school. So thank you both again. See you next month. All right. Thank you. Okay, we ready? Okay. All right, so now I want to recognize the group of 12 exchange students who are with us this year at Heights High. This is an exciting time for the AFS exchange program here at CHUH. Not only is the organization celebrating its 60th anniversary at Heights High, but the AFS USA National Convention is coming to Cleveland later this month. So here to tell us more about the program and our current students is Carla Bailey. Miss Bailey, come up. Our AFS Volunteer and Sponsors Programs Coordinator.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carla Bailey, and she's right. I am the youngest AFS volunteer. When I say young, not in age, but in years. It all started when my son, who is now 27, came home from 10th grade and said, Miss Yelsky says I can go to Japan. In my head, I was telling my son, please have a seat, sit down. You're not going to Japan, it's ridiculous. How do you go to Japan and you have to go to school? But as he came back with more information, I found out there was a program at Heights High called AFS USA. And it had been in place for many, many, many years. And long story short, my son went to Japan, came back a different person. 4 years later, my daughter spent a year with a host family who could not speak English in Bangkok, Thailand. She came back a different person, speaking fluently Thai. So that put me on the track to let me see what this program is about. So I hosted my first girl in 2007, 2008. Again, I'm a single mom. I was scared to death. What am I going to do with this kid? But what I realized was it was the most rewarding experience of my life. I love culture. I love edgy kids. Just to learn about different religions, different cultures, everything. And then what I realized was we in Heights High were diverse. No one else in AFS is diverse. So Heights High kind of put me on the map as the sponsor program coordinator. I'm the only sponsor program coordinator that's an African American in the whole United States. Heights High is the diverse school, and I mean top 10 in the whole United States. And we're talking about Georgia, Chicago, North Carolina, South Carolina. Cleveland Heights has it going on in AFS. So come up, Adrian. So I want to also give, accolades that you kept the program going way before me for 60 years, since the 50s, before I was born. AFS was going on. And at our event next Saturday, April 21st, we're having a big gala. It's our fundraiser. We haven't had a fundraiser in about 3 years. We usually have it here, but the school was closed. And we just have some wonderful, dynamic, edgy, crazy kids. Now, when they first came, they weren't like that, but they've been in Heights for almost a year now, so they're pretty Americanized. So, Adrian, tell us about your role.
Good evening. I'm a Heights graduate, But I was not at Heights 60 years ago when AFS started, though I was born. That's as much as I'm going to tell you about my age, Lucho. I'm a Heights graduate. My two children are Heights graduates. And Luciano, sitting back there next to Joy Henderson, is our 16th foreign exchange student that I somehow convinced my husband to host. And so I now have, he'll be my 18th student to graduate from Heights. Actually, I can trace it back to somebody's fault whose offspring is here in the audience. And where's Ari? Oh, there he is. It's Ari's mother's fault. Sue Klein. It's a long story, but she's the one that said, I think you would be great hosts with us. We're hosting again. And so she started the ball rolling. And I remember Ari when he was like that. Anyway, so I was a teacher at Heights. I retired 5.5 years ago. And I ran the AFS club. We usually had about 30 to 40 club members, and always had between 6 and 12 students. And that was amazing. And the club still goes on, despite the fact that I'm gone, but I live right here on Miramar. And so I'm always hanging with the kids, and I did promise my husband this will be our last hosting. And if I wasn't convinced before, I got convinced this week when Luciano's family all came from Argentina to visit us. And his parents are younger than my older daughter. Thank God the grandparents who came are a couple of years older than we are. So I just figured it's time. It's sort of like, you know, it's like I always say there's only a certain amount of years you can advise young mothers how to nurse a baby. You know, I mean, like after a while, those things just kind of go by the wayside and you have other interests in life. So I'm still at Heights. I supervise student teachers from John Carroll. And I always get assigned some Heights kids, so I have 2 at Heights this year. And your building is beautiful. Despite my husband grumbling about those tax dollars, I will take him there for the first time next Saturday night when you all will be there, right? For this wonderful dinner that this wonderful woman is putting together. She really has been a godsend to this program. So. Was that okay? Considering you just asked me to do this like 3 minutes before.
Because here's the problem is everybody thinks it's Carla Bailey. It's not Carla Bailey. It's Adrienne Yelsky, who helped me host, Joy Henderson, who also is an employee in the district, and she's hosting not just 1, 2 students. And, you know, it's just what we do. We're a great big family, and it's fun. So I'm going to bring up a couple kids. So you heard from me. Now let's hear about their experience at Heights High.
Hey, Carla,
and in
real
the
quick, what
community.
time is the dinner on Saturday?
The dinner on Saturday is 6:30, April 21st. As Dr. Dixon said, it's also AFS's National Convention is downtown that same weekend. So this is their Saturday night event. So I'm getting all their dollars
And
that
where
night.
will it be?
Excuse me?
Where?
Cleveland Heights High School.
At our high school, okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, now I'm going to introduce, let's see, I'm going to pick a couple. Alawatu Zungu from South Africa. Almira Syed from Tanzania. Roberto. Emmanuel. Elmira. Anyone else want to speak real quick? Mercy, Swale, anyone? Mariama? Oh, all of you? Okay, so here it is. It's a lot of you, so you have to go quickly. It's a meeting. Okay? Alawetu, you go first. Just stop. Come on. Introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Ole Tuzungu from South Africa. This has been truly an experience. At like 17 years old, the youngest of us was 16. and being 16, being taken out of your own country, and like personally, I am a scholarship winner with the KLS program. Being taken out of a country and exploring new and diverse cultures and learning something new about not only a country but yourself, and learning independence and how to actually survive on your own with the help of others, of course. I have truly enjoyed my experience at Heights because we have a broad opportunities that I would not get back home, all the way from sporting opportunities. I would not see things like football, softball back home. But here I get to be a part of a team. I was part of the swim team in the winter season. And things like academics and courses, we don't have things like guitars and engineering. Especially what I truly enjoy was the VMD, where I truly get to express myself and learn new things and learn how to even extend my talents. So I'm truly thankful for that and thankful for learning new things. And it's something that others back home would not even understand. Even at older generations don't understand what I've been through, and getting to have what some people call networking and network with different people from different countries. So I'm truly thankful for that.
Well, my name is Zainab Said from Tanzania, an exchange student, okay. Well, this has been amazing. Actually, like, here I found, the most, like, different things that I've found until now. I was like, back home we call soccer. Oh, like, football is soccer, and then when I call here, like, oh, I know that's football. That's no football. That's soccer. I was like, okay. And we call toilet, and it's not toilet. It's bathroom. Okay, and it's just amazing. I'm glad being part of exchange student. Like, for the first time, I leave my home country. I'm here in U.S. I haven't traveled anywhere. Like, I'm from Ireland. It's the first time I go to the mainland to get the plane to come to US. So it has been a great experience. Thanks to my family. Actually, I've changed family. I had a welcoming family, and now I had another family, Joy Henderson, and my lovely host sister. I just got her this year, so I'm enjoying a lot. Thank you.
Hi, I'm
30 seconds.
yeah. I'm Roberto. I'm from Italy, and I'm at High School. I want to say that experience been really nice till like now. I'm sure will be till the end. Now I'm start feeling like homesick, but like for this home when I'll be back in Italy, because like this experience really amazing. Like I like to see that this experience is nice when it's completely different from the one that you come from. I always make this example that it's not good for my dad in Italy, but I don't care. Like my family here, both my parents, their age together is like the age of my dad in Italy. So it's completely like different experience. I have two really young brothers, 2 and 4 years old. It's been like crazy nice every day in at home. It's never boring. I always see them around, just smile, seeing what they play, what they do. So yeah, also the school. It's crazy. I've been VMD. I joined barbershop. We always like went California, now Canada with VMD. It's been really a crazy experience like till now, and I will always remember that.
Good evening. My name is Emmanuel Sa, and I'm from Ghana. Being an exchange student is an opportunity which young kids get, and when we get it, we don't have to play with it. As a young kid, one thing which was like leaving my comfort zone to some place where I don't know anyone there, but actually, since I came to High, I've realized I've left comfort zone to a zone which is more comfortable than where I left. So, and also I appreciate the school. I've been learning new things, and it's all about cultural exchange. And I've getting the opportunity to learn new things. Cause if you stay in your world, yes, you don't know what is going on outside the world. So you have to take some responsibilities and take whatever it takes to experience what is outside the world. So being an exchange student has let me become global, and I love that, and I love being in high tech. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Almira. I'm from the Philippines, and this is a huge decision for me because a 16-year-old going to a different country by your own is really hard. And people say that they're scared because they're alone, and you're not alone. We have them, her, and everything, and it's really great. And here in Cleveland Heights, I had so much fun, so much fun. I went to Chicago. I went to everywhere, like Canada and everything. It was such an experience. And at school, we had all the opportunities like swimming, basketball, everything from the VMD. I like VMD because I love to sing. And it's a great experience. So I really like it, and I don't regret this decision at all. I loved it.
Hi, my name is Mercy Sakayan, and I'm from Kenya. So I'd say I've had like a very good time being here, and like I thank God that I really made this decision because it was not easy. Like for me back home, I'm the youngest, and my older brothers, and they're like, "No, you're not going. My small baby." My dad is like, "Oh, my baby's going away to a country," and yes, it's not easy, but thanks to them being here and everyone, it just makes it easier. Like when you talk to friends in school, they're like, "So you have your mom and your dad here?" No. They're like, "What? How can you come all this way to here without your family?" But thanks to them, it's so easy. And I've had like a good time, especially the VMD. We'll all say the VMD was great. Like, that's so good. I'll say like my experience here, I can't explain. It's the same as we went to Canada and like went up the CN Tower. It was so high, and I'm like, the pictures can't show the height of the thing. It's the same way the pictures that we have will never show how much good time we have had here. So yeah, it's really good, and I think you should encourage your kids and your grandchildren to go because they'll come back this different person, this all knowing everything, and yeah, it's really good.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mariam Makabia, and I'm from Sierra Leone. Like, for me, I've always wanted to come to the U.S. since I was a little girl because I always watch these teen movies where they show the U.S. I'm like, Mom, I want to come to the U.S. So, like, my friends in school heard about this exchange program, and they were like, Mariama, since you're the head girl, because I was back home, I was the head girl, and they were like, why don't you go and, apply and come see, like, know this experience, because, So I was like, okay, I told my mom. So, like, we went to Yes back home, and then I applied, and I was chosen. So I came to the U.S., and I'm here, and because I was in Cleveland, I was in North Carolina at first. So back then, I won't lie, when I was in North Carolina, my exchange was so bad because my host mom and I were not in good terms. But as soon as I came in Cleveland, it became so well because my host mom is the best. And, my friends, they're the best, and I thank God for them because they are making my exchange program so easier. And the kids at Heights, they are wonderful. The teachers, and for me, my best teacher is Mr. Williams because I love him. He's so good. Yeah, so I thank God for everything.
Okay, so as you can see, they have a great time. And I know you all think High Tide can be off the rip sometimes, but it's good for them to see real teenagers eating lunch in the real cafeteria. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before they all leave, we have, we would like to give you your first Heights alumni
Oh, my gosh.
T-shirt because they will all be graduating from Heights High, even though some will be going back to their countries and spending another year in high school. But you have your, so Ms. Carla, give you your shirts. We have them on the table for you. So thank you so much. I had an opportunity to have lunch with the students, and the things that they told me, I just said it was amazing. So I told them to give me some highs and lows. So have a lot of takeaways. But I shared with them, you know, for them to have the courage to come back, they would go back to their countries and they would change the world.
Yes.
Because of the experience that we provided for them, and then having the courage to come to another country. So thank you guys for coming. You have enriched our lives for just being here and the lives of the students at Heights High. And we're so proud of the accomplishments. And thank you, Carla, for leading this program, and the other families, Joy, and all the others. Thank you so much. All right. All righty. So thank you, Carla, again, and the students. So our next group of honorees is the Environmental Club from Heights Middle School. So the club has three main goals: service, fundraising, and education, plus one more, and that's fun. So this group works each week to recycle materials, raise money for environmental nonprofits, and enjoy time in nature. With Earth Day coming up on April 22nd, we wanted to invite our environmental club students to tell you about their activities at Heights Middle School. So their advisor, science teacher Peter Adorjan, is here to introduce our student speakers.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. Thank you, board members. It's an honor to be honored here, the club. I was a student here at Roxborough, and I was actually a member of the environmental club at Heights High. So this has been a love in my heart. And when I started the club in 2012, it wasn't long before a lot of kids came aboard, and they share the love for the environment too. They have so much energy recycling. There was a teachers come to me and say, Mr. Adorjan, these your students are so energetic. They're inspiring me to recycle. So they do fundraising. There was a student we had, well, he's an 8th grader. He couldn't make it. His name is Michael Seaman. He's such a business savvy guy. He started these talent shows, and we raised over $700 the first year, and Dr. Dixon was there. She was a guest, and that money went to, our students are going to tell you where that money went. But it's nice to close the week off like teaching, and then I get to spend time with these guys who love the environment like me, and it's a great way to finish the week off. So I'm going to let these guys speak a little bit about it.
Hello. My name is Kareem Azam, and I started Environmental Club about mid-year, and my friend Ryan, he invited me, and it was a great experience. He was my only friend there. That's the only person I talked to. But after a while, I made a lot of friends, and they were all so nice. And Mr. Adorjan is awesome, just awesome. I just wish I was in his class. And he's super nice. A lot of the kids there, like they know how to like basically, they know when enough is too much. Like when they know how to play, they know how to be serious. So like in an environmental club, when we're like chilling out, having a slice of pizza, they're like laughing and joking. But when we're recycling, they take it seriously. And I really enjoy environmental club because Mr. Adorjan, of course, taught me a lot. And my sister was previously in environmental club, and she still is. And she invited me to the talent show, and I saw how they worked it. Like they were like. They were opening and closing the curtains. They were selling popcorn. There was posters, and we are gonna have a fundraiser soon, a bake sale, and I and Rachel are gonna talk about that. And me and my friend Ryan, we are currently selling at every game. So recently at the basketball games, we made like over around $200 just by selling chips, Gatorades, and water. And it was amazing, just an awesome experience. Well, thank you, and I'm going to pass it on to Ryan.
Hello. My name is Ryan Moss. I have been a part of environmental clubs since the beginning of the year. I invited Kareem because I had no one else to talk to there. It was extremely lonely. The only person to talk to was Mr. Adorjan at first. And ever since I invited him, he's made friends with almost everybody. And we separate into teams to recycle for every mod of the school. So me and him were together in 6th grade mod. Then I moved to 8th with our friend Joey Russo, who couldn't make it today. And every classroom we recycle in there, the teachers are always nice to us. They give us support. They tell us never to stop doing what we're doing because we're doing something great for the environment. And we've told every teacher we're gonna do this as long as we can. We might, I don't know if there's an environmental club at the high school, but if there isn't, we'll start one. Thank you. I'm gonna pass it on to Aya Azam and Rachel O'Keefe.
Hi, first off, thank you for letting us come here. It's a great honor. I'd like to talk about the talent show that we started in 6th grade. We saved up to $500 for the World Conservation Network. This network is about nature, organization, working field. The money from the talent show, the talent show's idea was from Michael Seaman. Sadly, he cannot be here today, but his idea was a huge hit. And yeah, I'd just like to thank him.
This year we are doing a bake sale. This bake sale is for endangered species. Our goal is to donate to an endangered species organization of our choice.
We'd just like to thank Mr. Dorjan. He's always been supportive and giving us like great ideas and stuff. He's giving us a chance to make a change, and by doing that, we are able to think on our own. We're able to find a plan and communicate with one another. And as communication, it is one of our IB attributes. So thank you, Mr. Dorjan.
We want to get a picture with you guys too. So thank you so much. I did have a pleasure to go to one of their meetings, and it was so funny. They were voting. Remember that? They had to vote on, was it endangered whales and turtles? What did you guys decide? The rhinos, the turtles. Yes. So they donated about $700 to it, but they had a voting process, and they collected ballots, and they had it all planned out, very organized. So, and it's a lot of students. Your total group is about?
Yeah, there's about 25 students here, and
yeah,
we'll take them. Sometimes they don't show up for a couple of weeks, but that's okay. We welcome
kind of
them.
take yeah. So that's good. So you started something. So to give our regards to Michael, and he started something that we got to know that you're going to take definitely to the high school. So thank you so much. So we'd like to get a picture, and then we have some gifts for you outside as well. All right, let's get a picture.
It's also worth noting that when they're at games selling waters and stuff, that's a real service to the people who are there at the games. As a baseball dad, I can tell you I was always comforted knowing that there was a place to get a cold drink.
Okay, so now I'm thrilled to announce that Oxford Preschool is officially a 5-star program. So remember, in our was it last year? We opened another preschool. The community said we wanted an additional preschool, and we decided that Oxford would be that place. And George Packard and the team made sure that we did the renovations. If you ever have an opportunity to go look at it, it has the cutest little leather furniture. It is such a beautiful space there at Oxford. So the school was recently rated by the Ohio Department of Education Step Up to Quality Division. This is the highest rating the department gives to preschool programs. Now all 3 of our preschool sites, Oxford, Garrity, and Noble, are 5-star rated. So head teacher Amanda Barker and early childhood program specialist Danielle V., who couldn't be with us tonight, but they have played major roles in this accomplishment. So here with us tonight, representing Oxford Preschool, is assistant teacher Shaniqua Lee. Please join me up front to receive your certificate and take your photo. Come on, let's give her a hand. All righty, let me get a photo. All right, so finally, we'd like to recognize a number of CHUH staff members who are going above and beyond to create a culture of excellence in our district. Tonight, I want to honor our Tiger Team members for the month of March. We have received nearly 300 total nominations since we began this program last October. We have several of the March honorees with us tonight, so when I read your name, please come forward. From Heights High School, social worker Kristen Dattis, and automotive technology teacher Jeff Porter. From Monticello at Heights High, we have intervention specialist Lynn Gaines. From Roxborough at Heights Middle School, we have ELA support team member Anna Gregory. From Boulevard Elementary, 4th grade gifted teacher Sherry Bellini. From Canterbury Elementary School, intervention specialist Holly Askin. From Fairfax Elementary School, kindergarten teacher Michael Heffron. From Garrity Professional Development School, early childhood intervention specialist Aaron Goldberg. From Noble Elementary School, educational aide and lunchroom aide Darupi Pradham. From Oxford Elementary School, 1st grade teacher Jasmine Monroe. From Roxborough Elementary School, media ancillary Michelle Alexander. From the Board of Education, our ELL instruction specialist, Karen Heinsberger. So congratulations to all of our honorees, and thank you for your efforts in promoting a culture of excellence in Cleveland Heights University Heights School District. Okay, that's it for our recognitions tonight. That was a lot.
Yeah, that's great.
A lot of good stuff,
Much to celebrate.
Okay.
It's always great hearing from the kids, and I'm really glad that this is a change that we made in our agenda formats.
Yeah.
Next up, we have statements from the audience. Karen Rigo?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Posh, Dr. Dixon, Mr. Gaynor, and board members, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Karen Rigo, and I'm the first vice president of Cleveland Heights Teachers Union. I'm here to give an update on our views of the middle school discussion since your last work session. Our teachers union filed a grievance against administration for not following board policy. There is a policy that in part states that students, teachers, and administrators maintain an environment that allows for students to learn, and there are consequences that are fair and enforces the school code of conduct. Student code of conduct, excuse me. The policy also states that the Board of Education has zero tolerance of violent, disruptive, or inappropriate behavior of its students. We asked for central administration, Heights Middle School administration, to work in collaboration with local 795 representatives to develop a student discipline plan. Here are the initial plans that have been developed and are currently being implemented. So first period class cutting, teachers and administrators have developed a plan that includes tracking the number of times students miss their first period class. The students will be assigned through progressive discipline. Class cutting in 2nd through 9th periods. 2 days a week, administration will create a report that tracks students who were marked absent for some classes during the school day, but were present in others. The students will receive progressive discipline, starting with lunch detentions and after-school detentions, and move on from there. The Alternative Learning Center. Students will be escorted to and from lunch, and also out of the building every day. They will not be permitted to go to their lockers or walk around the building asking for classwork from their teachers. We have received extra security. We have 3 additional security guards, or monitors, that have been assigned to sweep the halls and monitor behavior during transitions. Walkie-talkies were also provided in hallways where there is no office located, so that in an emergency, a designated staff member can call for assistance. We feel this is a good start to making our middle school a safe and secure learning environment. We will monitor the situation closely and be asking our staff members if they see improvements so we can resolve our grievance. Thank you for taking the time to discuss our concerns last month, and I hope that we can continue to work together. Thank you.
Are there any other statements from the audience? We have a Green Apple project presentation.
We're very fortunate tonight. We have, this Green Apple program is something that the district entered into over a year ago. And we have 2 phenomenal representatives that are going to show you some updates and how this district has been stepping forward and not only saving money through educating our students and staff on how to conserve electricity and so on, but we're going to start recycling as a big effort also. But Pete Bauer from Brewer Garrett has been from the point person from the company that's been helping us out, and Dee Dee Wolin as the energy coach has been phenomenal at getting out, meeting and greeting our students and staff. So I'll let them take it from here.
Good evening, Cleveland Heights University Heights team. Thank you for having us this evening. The Green Apple Project is a program offered by the Brewer Garrett Company. So the Brewer Garrett Company is a facility solutions company that has an emphasis on energy efficiency. And so in 59 years as an industry leader in Northeast Ohio, the Brewer Garrett Company, as they were working with customers, realized that there was a big piece of the puzzle that was missing as they were doing mechanical engineering for customers. And that piece of the puzzle was the occupant behavior. That was the people in the building every day. So fast forward, research now suggests, or research now supports, that occupant behavior, the people in the building, have an effect on at least 20% of the energy use of that building. To address this, in 2013, Brewer Garrett Company started the Green Apple Project, which is a behavior-based energy conservation program. So what is behavior-based energy conservation? Well, it's as simple as turning off the lights when no one's home or closing the door when you have the air conditioning running. So for any of us who pay the utility bills in our household and have kids, you may know that that's not exactly easy to convince folks to do. So on a large scale, here at the district, we now have 12 buildings where we're doing that. And at the heart of the Green Apple Project is the Energy Coach. And so the Energy Coach, Dee Dee Wolin, works with staff and students every day to educate and motivate staff and students on energy efficient behaviors. They also have the full engineering support of the Brewer Garrett Company in reaching the strategic goal 2020, goal 5, objective 2, which is reducing operational resources. We are pleased to have Dee Dee Wolin as the energy coach for the Cleveland Heights University Heights School District.
So, we've done a lot of training. I've done workshops with staff. We've encouraged them to change their behaviors and empowered them to take action. So, for instance, when we all leave this room, whose responsibility is it to turn off the light? You know, there are a lot of spaces that people leave and nobody thinks, it's not their room, so they don't do that. In classrooms and everything, offices, people do, but we're trying to get people to do more than that. So think about occupancy of buildings that go from hundreds of people during the day to 4 or 5 or 10 at night. So we've met with all the custodians to talk about, and the cleaners to talk about, when you're in the buildings and there's just a few of you there, you know, do you need to turn everything on? And I don't know if people have noticed driving around the community now, sometimes you go by these buildings and they're really dark and you go, is there anybody in there? You know, are they working? So we've really done a push for that. You can see there we've done training with different groups, cleaners, trades, grounds, all sorts of people. We've offered PD during the sessions at the high school that have come to have presented at the principals meeting as well. And then we've also started doing things with the students and all. We have the energy competition we did last year, which Fairfax won kind of hands down. And, you know, it's kind of hard to say because, you know, we have schools that, you know, they may have reduced their energy a lot, but maybe they had further to go. I mean, another school says, well, gee, how come we didn't reduce that much? Well, maybe you were already doing stuff. Maybe you had a custodian that did stuff, or maybe you had teachers that were real involved. So, you know, it's there's a little bit of play there. We've also been, we have this energy bike that it's actually a system that we hook a bike up to, like if you're exercising in the wintertime. It's got a motor to it, and then we have a light board with different types of lights. I've actually worked now with teachers at Garrity, Boulevard, Roxborough, and Canterbury to demonstrate this and actually do lessons. The STEM teacher did a lesson with the kids where the kids had to design an experiment, how much energy is it going to take them, sort of saying slow riding, fast riding, et cetera, and then doing the incandescent bulbs versus the LED bulbs and stuff. And the kids really, really enjoyed that. I'm actually spending the time tomorrow with the environmental science teachers, and we're going to be doing that with them. So we have worked extensively with all the like I said, all the staff members and stuff. But we've also worked with, we're talking with George, we've been working with the electrician to go a little further from the behavior, and that is to actually change out some of the really low efficiency bulbs, like all those bulbs that hang down in the gyms that are, they're very hot, so they, you know, you get all these kids running around, you get all this heat being produced by the lights, and then they open the doors and we lose all of our energy. So we've actually had changed out Canterbury, Canterbury, Noble, and Garrity, and then they're working on, going to be working on some of the others soon. They've already bought some of those bulbs for that. And this is actually Canterbury before and after. You can see that the lighting has changed. Some of the things that are important about it is not just the heat and all that, but also shadows and things like that. It gives a better thing. And the nice thing about at Noble, they actually used the old lights from the South Gym that were saved, the light fixtures for that. We've also worked extensively. There's the Noble Gym. We've also worked extensively with George Coleman on the control systems. One of the big things that we can do is the heating and cooling is to do setbacks at night. And it's real important in that, you know, that one person there makes a big effect. We also try and get people to, you know, we're trying to work on not opening windows when it's hot in the building. You know, call the heating and cooling guys, or put in a work order to get something fixed rather than just throwing open your windows and wasting all of that. We've also assessed steam traps. This is the steam that's going through the system, and you can see the difference in the temperature there from that shows that the steam is just flowing through there, which is a waste of energy. It's a very, it's a really huge source of energy waste. And so they actually changed out the, all of the steam traps at Oxford in November, and it's shown a big decrease in usage. And I'm not sure, George, did they get to the other school yet? Or which one are they working on? Canterbury? Garrity. So they're working on another one, and then there are other ones slated to go. Now we only, you know, also have to understand that we have a lot of different systems in the district. So the footprint buildings are not steam, and Roxborough is hot water stuff. So there's, you know, so we're working slowly trying to just that's one of the things that Brewer Garrett does with the engineers, is to also assess what other things we can do that would save money. So a little bit, just you want to know what we've accomplished. So the program began at the beginning of last school year, and if you think about, so I started actually the second day of school. So if you notice I did this by 6-month periods. It's a little easier to look at than month by month. So if you look at the first one there, you see we really only made like 1.5% reduction, but that's because I've spent basically September, October, November, talking to people, training people, getting things going. And then you can see the next 6 months, we got up to, it went up to 16, or down, I should say, by 16%, which is really significant. And then the last 6 months, it's only 14%, went down a little bit, but this is just electricity. So we've split out the electricity and the gas differently because the electricity, we can make such a bigger impact in the summer because air conditioning is one of the largest uses of energy. So we're expecting that this summer, hopefully, it will be significant. And then the second graph there shows actually dollar savings for that. And then this is natural gas. And again, you can see we were actually using more natural gas the first 6 months, and then we've shown a good decrease in that. So I'm going to talk a little bit just about the electricity because it's kind of impressive here. So we actually saved, it was 1.2 million kilowatt hours that we reduced over the course of time. So, anybody have an idea what that, does it mean anything to you? No. Well, so one of the things I talk about is environmental equivalence, and you can actually look at your electric bill, and you can actually put this. There's converters on the computer, and you can actually on the internet, and you can see what that's an equivalent to. So some of the environmental equivalents that we have are getting 193 cars off the road for a year, or using 101,000 fewer gallons of gas. Now that kind of makes an impact on how many gallons of gas you use in a year. I think it gives you a little bit. We've also got up there pounds of coal and some tree seedlings and stuff that you can see. And then of course there's a question of what you really want to know, and that is that the 10% reduction that we have in that has actually in 18 months saved us so far $153,000. So, do you want to talk quickly about screens?
One of the things we want to add to the Cleveland Heights University Heights website, we have a Green Apple part of the website if you go to the bottom of the page there. And so as part of that next layer on the website, we're going to put this Green Apple reporting tool, which is, we call it the Green Spot. And the purpose of that is to get feedback from folks around the school district. Anybody who's on the website can report any energy inefficiency or give us feedback as far as, hey, I noticed the lights were on at midnight over at one of the schools, and, that's something we can look into. We got the energy coach, which is one set of eyes and ears, but everybody else around the district is, it's an awesome source of information. We love to take advantage of that and get everyone's involvement. And additionally, the energy equivalency posters will be putting up at all the schools for Earth Day so the students can see how they're doing in their buildings.
So this one is the 18 months of the whole district, and then each school is going to be this year's so far. And then one of the other things that we do with this program is Brewer Garrett has a home energy savers, and so I'd like to see people do this at home. And I actually had a security monitor who told me that she started doing some of the stuff we talked about and saved $20 on her electric bill one month. So it really can be significant. So does anybody have any questions about the program? Or?
The posters in each school that you're putting up, will they be school-specific or district-wide?
They'll be district-wide.
Okay.
Oh, they're not school-specific?
I was just wondering.
Oh, okay.
So, this seems like it's a great accomplishment. So there's a lot of wonderful things that I think are coming out of this. How do we compare to other schools, though? I assume this is something that is implemented in other schools, or is it not, or are we a trendsetter? Just kind of curious to see how these efforts compare.
So you're definitely a trendsetter. We are working with Green Apple Project and, behavior-based energy conservation. It's a fairly new idea within the last 5 years, and we started with you 18 months ago, and so you were the fourth or fifth Green Apple customer, and now we have about a dozen in the state of Ohio. Fairly poor energy performance to start with. That's very typical for older buildings. Where you rank now, I'd say, you're within the top districts for the age of your buildings. So I think, we've made a lot of improvements and there's still a lot to go, but, I think there's just such a positive impact and trend in the right direction that, the sky's the limit with this.
Okay. How can we make sure that this is sustainable? So, the energy coach, is there a fixed end to the project, or is this something that we do on an annual basis? What's our plans for that? And, maybe we need to reconvene later to get a better answer for that.
Well, I can give you some basic information. It's a 5-year program, and so we're with Burr Garrett has the energy coach on our payroll for 5 years, and we provide the training and the organization and the what we call the Energy Coach Manual, which goes through each building and identifies energy inefficiencies and places to focus on. That all stays with the district. Unfortunately, so the information stays with the district. Unfortunately, the Energy Coach, after 5 years, we would terminate the program at the end of the contract, and so whether the district would like to pick that up. There are bigger districts in Ohio that do have an energy manager type position, so it would be common for someone to fill that in some limited capacity.
And this is a the behavior program. A lot of, I know you've heard, a lot of places now have sustainability directors and stuff like that, and a lot of them, especially the for-profit places, can afford to change over a lot of things. And I think that one of the things that we've been looking at is not just like with the lights and the gyms and stuff. A lot of the things that we have also are on. It's like they're all on breakers, so the custodians come in and turn everything on because they're on breakers, and you don't want people going to the breakers all the time. Plus, the gym lights take 10 minutes to warm up. So one of the things that would be an advantage is if those things are changed over and we can eventually put light switches in, and then the staff members can actually do those. So there are a lot of other things that can still happen. So those are kind of a combination between behavior and capital. One of the things that I'd like to see is that we start seeing savings that then we say, hey, well, why don't we put some of that back into some other things that whether it's maintenance that has had to been put off, or whether it's actually changing things out, so you can do, more with those kind of things.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else wants the energy savings tips for home?
So, the next item is the approval of our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Do we have any questions? I had one about the business services contracts. I emailed
Yes.
George in advance about the iPads and some of the technology costs.
And I did get some information here. The iPads, you had a question about the sale of the iPads?
Well, it wasn't clear if it was a sale or a purchase, because those were all things that it looked like we were approving to spend money.
You actually confirmed the sale of the items. When the board voted to authorize the sale of surplus equipment, part of that sale included the iPads, and there was a laundry list of other items that were authorized for sale. The only items that sold were the iPads and some other desktop units that we combined in lots.
Okay.
So you were acknowledging the receipt of $70,000. And now I still have other items. Just for the board's information, I've entered into a deal with govdeals.com. They're an authorized website company that sells government surplus. And I put the first item that was in that group that you authorized. So all this other, from lockers to gym equipment, stuff that you had authorized to sell, I'm taking it now since it didn't sell at the public auction that we were required to do. I'm putting it online and it's going across the country. One item's up there. It takes a little work, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get it there.
So the $70,000, excuse me, or whatever the exact number was, that's the net for the district?
That was, right, and what we did is we put that back into the IT budget so they can use that money to purchase
Terrific.
new
Okay.
equipment.
There's also an issue regarding Spectrum or Charter Communications.
Yes, that is the dark fiber contract for the district. So it doesn't, there's a savings, and let me read it to you here. It's a renewal of dark fiber that connects all the rest of the buildings from Delisle out.
So it's a renewal then?
Yes.
And so we're still relying on Delisle to be
Yes,
sort of
as the
like
head end,
main-
yes, we are.
So that's the hub for the whole fiber network?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And you asked a question about EMC2, the software.
Yes.
That is, that's the new backup and disaster recovery software that the district has purchased. And it's a 5-year license fee that costs us $22,000, but that we have a savings of $18,000 moving away from the company that we had.
And this is for all of our servers?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, those are all my questions.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? Scott, would you call the roll?
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Serini?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Wright? Yes. Mr. Posh?
Yes. Next item is the superintendent's report.
Oh, so we have a social studies curriculum. Who's coming? Bob Swagger. Look at that kid. So, first reading of our social studies curriculum adoption.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here on behalf of the curriculum instruction team. Karen Bauer-Blazer, who is our instructional specialist for social studies, has spent a lot of time putting this presentation together, and she has a tooth abscess, and so I get a chance to fill in her stead. So tonight I am actually going to be talking to you about this year's curricular adoptions. What we have is we actually have 2 adoptions. We are adopting social studies and world language materials this year. And you can see, based on the handout in your packet, that this is the curriculum adoption presentation or cycle that we've talked about at our last board retreat.
Can we take just a quick time out? So
Sure.
just as far as procedure goes,
Sure.
this is, there's a number of readings.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
And Karen would be here to answer some questions in a future reading.
Yes.
And these would be going to the next, every 30 days, there'll be another reading?
Yes, so at each of the next 3 not work sessions, the general meetings, the first of the month, Karen will be here to really just give a little bit of an update, answer any questions, allow you to ask any questions, and then provide any additional information. So tonight is really just walking through it, giving you some of the details, the nuts and bolts, so you can get a chance to digest it, and then ask any questions, obviously through emailing the superintendent. We can get that information to you, but then we'll also be back in front of you next month as we move into May, our first board meeting of May, and then we'll have the 3rd meeting, the first board meeting in June.
Okay. And your intent is to get this resolved and passed so it would be implemented this coming school year?
Yeah, so our goal is to have, by the 3rd reading, have a vote that people would able to approve this proposed curricular material purchase, and then we could start working with our vendors in June using budget dollars for either at the end of this year or for next year, depending on what we might still have left in our budgets from the 2017-18 school year and then moving into 2018-19. So those materials will be ready for August as our teachers and our students come back from summer vacation.
And do the teachers need or get time to become familiar with the new materials?
So as we start moving through this process, many of our teachers have already become a little bit familiar because of our piloting of these resources. But usually as we move into June, we have gathered feedback from you. Is this something that we might be able to move forward with? And our publishers usually give our teachers the advanced copies of Teacher's Edition, so they're able to walk out of school in June with the resources that we expect to
With
adopt.
a little bedtime reading for the summer.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay.
A lot of fun, right? But also very necessary, and our teachers do take that very seriously to take the summer to prepare for the next school year.
Right. Now, the teachers who've been involved in the piloting obviously are familiar with it, but the others aren't yet.
Yes, and we have been trying to make sure teachers, whether they were involved in the pilot or not, are up to date with this. Our vendors have provided professional development during our 2 district-wide PD days, so that was open for any teacher, whether they were piloting or not. And then we also tried to make sure that there is updates in our newsletters. We have our district grade level team meetings. We give some updates. So a lot of this is really materials that we try to put out in front of as many teachers as possible through the piloting process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so as you can see, this is our district-wide curricular materials and adoption cycle. It should look familiar because we have been using it since 2013. As I've kind of moved into this position, we knew that it was critical for us to have a schedule so we could budget for these things and really try to make sure that all of our curricular materials are updated. The one that I like to reference as our Spanish materials specifically is our current Spanish textbook has technology vocabulary in it that students today have no idea what it is. So when we think about using a floppy disk, or I'm not talking the 3.5, I'm talking about the actual floppy disk. It's definitely one of the things that we value. I think that the board has done a tremendous job of making sure that our facilities are updated, our curricular materials are updated, and that our students really have the best chance at academic, social, emotional, and even public success that they can. So this is just a natural part of that cycle, is making sure that our curricular materials are up to date. So I'll walk you through a little bit of the social studies pilot, and then after that I'll talk a little bit about the Spanish pilot and just what are some of the recommendations from the committees. It is really important to understand that this is completely in line with our strategic plan goals 1 and 2. Goal number 1 being student outcomes, expectations, proficiency, and mastery. As the state continues to work through updating our state standards, it becomes critical that we, from time to time, update our curricular materials. And at this point in time, it's a really good time for us to be spending our time and energy looking at the social studies and our world language. Goal number 2 is equity, and through the educational approach, equity, empowerment, and opportunities. And that really is saying that sometimes our curricular materials can also help our teachers update their educational approach. And actually, our social studies materials, I think, do this tremendously well, because it's not just about a book, it's about the approach the book takes to instruction. And so I'll share a little bit about what that looks like as we move through our presentation. So here we are. This started last year with our review committee, and our social studies pilot committee had representatives from all levels in our organization. So you can see our elementary, middle school, and high school teacher representatives. You also had the central office staff that was involved in the committee meetings. We really spent some time in 2016 and 17 coming up with what are some criteria we want a new curricular material or a new curricular resource to address. And this is really where our top priorities for social studies, and this is coming from social studies teachers, is at the top we obviously want to talk about alignment to state standards, as these materials would prepare us for testing, but we also really wanted to create hands-on learning opportunities for students. And so student engagement with social studies is something that was high on our list. It actually makes me very proud as a former social studies teacher to see so many students come up here and actually exercise their social studies learning, and giving agency to their purpose, talking about things that they're passionate about. That is, in fact, social studies in action. So I'm really excited to see that. We also wanted to make sure our materials had a focus on reading and writing informational text. As we have been looking at state standards, as students move up from elementary into middle school, about 50% of what students should be reading should be informational text. As we move into the high school age, we should be reading about 70% of what we read is informational text. And it really becomes challenging when we're thinking about, well, is that all going to happen in an English classroom? And the answer is no, it's not. It's really about how we can help all of our teachers become reading teachers in the one step of looking at the content we look at in our specific content area. So social studies, science, math, those are all very technical subjects that the informational text is something that we need to help our students be able to access at all levels. And then one of the other big things is talking about some continuity from our programs. Now, one of the things our teachers have expressed some concern about is as our students come out of elementary into middle school, not only are they dealing with some of the transitions of moving from elementary to middle school and the grade level, but now it's I have to learn a whole new resource. So this book isn't set up the same way that my other book was. This is a different login. I'm not sure how to access my homework. And it was really important for us to try to find a curricular tool that allowed for some continuity between the different levels. And you're going to see some of that continuity come through in the recommendations that the committee has made. All right. So in the review phase, which really was taking a look at all of these vendors, the teachers love it when we have our vendor presentations come in because that's like a kid on Christmas. We get a chance to listen to all kinds of different vendors. And we also are very cognizant of the fact that they are selling a product. And so, yes, we appreciate that they come in and they bring us the pens and the bags and they've got all kinds of new books and that's exciting. But we also make sure that we have our own rubrics for the things that we think are important in a curricular tool. So these are some of the vendors that we invited in. Ohio Studies Weekly Magazine, McGraw-Hill Social Studies, Ohio as America, which is something that is sponsored even through the state. There's a book dedicated specifically to fourth grade in the state of Ohio. McGraw-Hill, Ohio Social Studies, and then some of our bigger publishers of Houghton Mifflin and Pearson. So we've invited all these groups in. They made their presentations. They showed us what it is that they had to offer. They gave us demo accounts. We looked at the online access. And we really got a chance to kick the tires of these curricular materials before we even said, yes, these are actually going to move through to the next phase of our process. So from that, we actually did make some decisions. We said, these are the things we're interested in taking a closer look at and actually use in our schools. And so as we went through this pilot phase and we got a chance to look at these different vendors, we also spent some time making sure that our vendors could come back in and provide the actual updated training for our teachers to use the resource wisely, even in a pilot phase. So this is all professional development that is part of that initial exposure to these materials. This is not professional development that we have purchased. This was all through our pilot. And it's really making sure that we're trying it out to the best of our abilities. So this is not where decisions were made, but we had 3 vendors come in, and if you're piloting this information, this curricular tool, then we're going to make sure that all 3 of those vendors had access to come and train our teachers on what they were using.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So as we're looking at the review phase,
Yes.
2016 and 17, for a few of the grade bands, you only have one provider listed. And so as we're talking about piloting, are we piloting just Pearson 8 through 11 and Houghton Mifflin 5 in there?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And so what we did is we had multiple vendors come in at all of those grade levels. And from that, the teacher said, we're not interested in the other vendors that came in. So they had options, and they said, this is what we really want to see. Is this the best option for these grades and these courses? We also wanted our committee to understand that just because 5 through 7 and 10 were doing Houghton Mifflin, we were also comparing that to the Pearson product that was in a different grade level. So we were still looking at trying to compare, yes, it might not be a 5th grade in Houghton Mifflin and a 5th grade in Pearson, but we were talking a 5th grade in Houghton Mifflin and a 8th grade in Pearson. So we still were trying to do some of those comparisons between the grade levels.
Okay. And then you mentioned the importance of continuity in terms of the platforms.
Yep.
because there is an enormous difference as you go from platform to platform. And so I'm wondering if throughout the course of these months, the different readings, I would like to know what platform jumping are we doing, say, between social studies and science and language arts? You know, because if you use, let's say, a Houghton Mifflin product in science in 8th grade, normally you'll have the same login if you use it in social studies, et cetera. So not that that's, you know, a decision that will have a huge weight on whether or not you should adopt, but it does really speak to that important continuity.
Agreed. And I appreciate that comment, and I actually want to make sure that I speak to how we've created a continuity through our previous adoptions as well. So our ELA adoption for the elementary level uses the same platform as our science that we adopted last year. So again, students are going to one spot, they can log in, and they get both their English and their math, or their science. So it is just that great opportunity for it to be one-stop shopping for our students. We are considering it through this phase, but it's not the deal breaker to say, well, we weigh that equally with all the other criteria.
Another piece that it does well if you use the same platform, and I'm really not saying that we should in any way, shape, or form, but one of the other things that it does is there is this informational text versus non-informational text piece, which is incredibly important. And if you use, say, the Pearson in language arts and social studies, say, then they are sort of aligned to each other. So in language arts, they're reading informational text about the topics being studied in social studies, as well as vice versa, because the right hand knows what the left is doing.
Yep.
Versus if you're using different platforms, they're not as aligned.
It makes a lot of sense, and it actually does talk to some of the recommendations the Social Studies Committee made. One of the things we've heard from our elementary teachers is we have an ELA series. We're using it. We have a science. We have a math. We're good. They're feeling that if we went into a whole new social studies, that it actually might start to pull them away from some of the other resources. And it actually is a very intentional piece of why we got to the decision that we did with the Social Studies Weekly. That is the resource that we've chosen for our K through 4. And actually, I'll kind of fast forward here just to bring you up to speed with that. So we're actually going to do K through 6 as Ohio Studies Weekly. And what this is a weekly newspaper that students will have. So this is not a textbook. This is something that students are going to get a 4-page newspaper format that they could cut up, they can draw on, they can highlight. So again, thinking about what's critical for a student to consume informational text is to interact with it. So we think that our teachers have told us that the Ohio Studies Weekly is very rich in social studies content, and it's not so overpowering as a whole new textbook. So they're very excited to infuse it into their instruction as it relates to the social studies and the science that we've already purchased. So I think it's a great point, and I think our group was very intentional about not trying to think, great, now I've got 5 textbooks that I'm trying to teach as an elementary teacher. That was not the intent, and that was not the goal. So we are really trying to be thoughtful about how we can manage these resources to really make sure that they're used fully in the classroom. No, I appreciate that. That's a great question. So just backing up, just real quickly, yeah, of course,
Another
Jody.
quick question. So
Yes.
if we're using it K through 6, do we think that that will ease the transition a little bit also to middle school from 5 to 6?
We
Because you're
hope.
at least familiar with some of that?
We hope.
Okay.
And so just as you can see here, so K6 is Ohio Studies Weekly. The one thing we know about social studies in the state of Ohio is starting in 4th grade, the standards get pretty serious. Like this is actual historical content that we need in 4th grade. So we needed to overlap a little bit between what is the right amount and how do we start bridging that gap for students that are moving into 4th and 5th. So we didn't think Ohio Studies Weekly was going to give us enough content-specific information in 4 and 5 So we actually went to our Teachers Curriculum Institute, which is our middle school. It's our 4th through 11 adoption. So we're actually going to give our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade teachers 2 resources that are going to help them teach the content. One is going to be able to access that. It's something the students are used to coming out of elementary, but then we're also going to pair that with the TCI material. It's also called History Alive. And the intent of that is getting students engaged. The benefit of this is really doing simulations. Students are actively engaged. They're up and moving around the room. They're doing photography labs where they're getting to examine pictures and really documents, and historical thinking is a primary piece of this. So it's really more about engaging, as we would think, how do we want people to consume history? How do we want them to investigate it? How do we want them to engage in it? And most of the things that are the teacher comments about piloting TCI and History Alive it's amazingly engaging. And so students are really excited about using those resources. And then it does take us up to our APs and our upper level courses. And so we do think that there is obviously that need to update our AP materials. That's AP US History, AP Government, our AP Micro and Macro courses. So this is also the time we're going to take to make sure that those materials have been updated. We've got current copyrights, and the publishers that we're using for that are Cengage and Pearson. So that's not something where we're going to have a single publisher. We want to use the best resource for those materials. Just like a college professor would say, I'm not just using one textbook. I might have multiple publishers that might get me the information that I need. Okay.
These
Yeah.
platforms
Feel free.
usually have an online version, and the online versions will have the same material being presented at multiple reading levels.
Yes.
The print editions that we're getting for things like the newspaper, is that similarly available at multiple reading levels, and will those be in play simultaneously, if so?
So the newspaper component for our elementary does have the print. It is written at the grade level that's specific to the second grade is going to be on second grade reading level. But online, there are a ton of resources for students to be able to go in and find an article that corresponds with a newspaper article, or we could do some further investigations, and there is some opportunity for them to get something that might be at a different reading level. So even if they're learning about the state of Ohio in 4th grade and they're reading at an 8th grade level, they could then find some additional resources that would be written at an upper level.
Right, but as you know, the further you go, the bigger the gap often becomes. So certainly by the middle school level,
Yep.
we want to have things that are, I think it's important for students to have products from the same provider at different levels.
Yep. Agreed. And so it is the Studies Weekly online version. So it is their newspaper, and it is an online access that has a lot more than just that one single print.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Got it.
So this is how you can see the overlap of materials as we're looking to adopt them. So we would do the Studies Weekly K through 6, the TCI History Alive in grades 4 through 11, which gets us up through government, and then we have our advanced placement materials in grades 11 and 12. Actually, that goes 10 through 12 because our U.S. history course is in 10th grade. So why Studies Weekly? And I think I've touched on this a little bit, but just to make sure that Karen has some due justice, even though I'm presenting on her behalf today, it is print magazine and it is web-based. There is an audio reader. So again, this is for our younger students that they could highlight the text and it could read the text to them. Activities for engagement. It does come with teacher-created lesson plans, which I know many of our teachers are excited to say that something is already completed for them. It's more about the implementation of it. We can see the differentiation and enrichment activities, again, using the online pieces of that. There are videos that are linked right there to the same content and topic. And then really we have been finding ways to use it and as Mr. Hines had expressed, is making the links across language arts, math, science, art, and music. So really this does become more of an interdisciplinary resource that can span much broader than just in social studies. And we are obviously trying to do the fostering of critical thinking for our students to be able to critically evaluate something and then create some decision making around it. When we think about the Ohio Studies Weekly, that is an example. That's the cover page of what one of the issues look like. So this is something where if students or teachers see that there is a topic that they want to use at a different time in the year, they can just put that newspaper away until that appropriate lesson or unit comes up. And this is some of the things that our teachers have said, or actually the students said. The book this year is boring. Studies Weekly is better than the book. Some other students said we also use Studies Weekly, which I like better than the book. And again, I think it just talks to how ready our students are to be engaged with something, that they don't feel completely overwhelmed with a brand new textbook.
So how political do these things get, considering their social studies at the upper levels? I mean, do they start bringing in partisan politics at all?
You know, I think that they're pretty closely aligned with our state standards. So it's not necessarily about the opinion, it's about the fact-based piece. And I'd love to just bring a couple of copies in our next reading so you guys can see a little bit of, what does this look like? What are we really talking about? I know there was a request to see a sample copy of the TCI book, which is the History Alive piece. And so I'll bring that for 8th grade. But definitely I'll bring some material so you can get a chance to look at it, ask some questions, look it over. I know we've got some sitting around, so we'll definitely bring those for you to take a look at. And you can do a little bit of an evaluation yourself. But we're obviously looking for that bias when we're doing the evaluation of the resources on our own. So our teachers spend a lot of time saying, is this really about creating a political message, or is this about making sure that we understand the parts of the Constitution? So it really is more some of that fact-based in a way that looks like a newspaper article. It isn't actually a newspaper article where there's a lot of op-ed or there might be a lot of social commentary.
Did you say that the teachers get all of the issues at the same time, so
They
they can
do.
decide what order
Yep.
to use them in? Okay.
Yes, so an elementary teacher will get that, and they'll have all of the copies for the entire year, and they can decide how to best.
Which order works for their classroom?
And
Okay.
I think that our team, the curriculum team, would like to provide some recommendations, like this is how we might think it fits with your ELA series, or when you're even doing something like the energy. If we're doing an energy conservation piece in April for Earth Day, we might say, great, this would be a great time to hold on to this article until the spring. So I think that we want to try and find some really strong curricular connections.
Great.
How does this meet our standard for racial equity? There's lots of textbooks that you see a lot of white faces in, and they just don't resonate with a lot of students that we have. I mean, do you guys look at it from that perspective?
We do, yes, of course. I mean, obviously, as we've been looking and working through some of our equity tools, like Dr. Womack has shared the LEAD tool with us, and we've looked at some of those curricular audits. We want to make sure that our students can see themselves in our curricular tools. The newspaper is all comic-based. It isn't necessarily actual photographs. So that's one way. I think that there's a lot of there aren't definite groups that are represented. They're more from a character or a cartoon kind of perspective. And then I think with the TCI material and the hands-on material, I think that we definitely see a larger representation of students with diversity. So even as we've looked at what other districts have adopted TCI and where do those schools sit? We know a lot of our IB schools use History Alive because it is engaging, it is inquiry-based. I know that I've gone on school visits, and I've talked to people in LA and Texas, and those are really diverse districts, and I know that these are some of the materials that they're using. But definitely it's something that you'll be able to see as you're working through looking at some of these materials. One of my favorite TCI activities, and this is very kind of gets in the weeds, but it's also something that I like to use when I was teaching in the social studies department, there was something that talked about population density and what it looks like in Japan. And so there is a visual discovery is what they call it, where people are on a subway car and the person who's working on the subway is shoving people into the car. And it's just very interesting to think, so that's what's happening in Tokyo. What does that look like? What is population density? And the activity follows up where there's a piece of paper on the floor and you have 10 kids trying to put their their toe on the paper to talk about population density about Asia, and then we've got one kid sitting with 10 pieces of paper as a different part of the world. So again, it's more about that very kinesthetic. We want people or our students to understand what does that look like, and then we're really trying to make sure that we also have that global context in our resource as well.
So, TCI, well, I'm not an educator, so I'm just looking from your perspective, how these things get evaluated. You have these super big companies like Pearson, well established in the market. They're here for the long term. It's sort of like in the old days, you buy IBM because they're always going to be here. Well, we're entering into a long-term contract. Is TCI a big company? Is it a small company?
Sure. It is a bigger company, and they have been around for a while. I know that we've had some teachers, again, through my 18 years here in the district, we've had some people who have gone and actually worked with TCI. We've got people who have been trained. And again, their package is you have to change how you think about social studies instruction. It's not about just lecturing. It's not about just creating note opportunities for students. It's about engaging them in something that's very physical and kinesthetic. And so our professional development around this will be training our teachers on how to incorporate that into the classroom. I don't know, I could do some research on how long the company has been around for you.
That's not necessary.
But it's definitely been a viable option for the 18 years that I've been in the district.
Yeah, I don't need you to go into that level.
Okay, that's great. So just kind of continuing to move through here, these are the strategies that the TCI material we use: is skill builder, visual discovery, experiential exercise, writing for understanding, response groups, and then problem-solving group work, which, again, I think we saw a prime example of problem-solving group work based on our environmental club today. So I think that this is going to help our students, even from a young age, understand how to organize, how to advocate, and how to make sure that their message gets across. So I'm really excited to see how many more students will be able to be here in a couple of years presenting their ideas for what it is that they think needs to happen in the schools. So I think these resources are going to help give them the opportunity to practice with that in their social studies classrooms. This is what our teachers at the Heights Middle and the high school have thought. They said great hands-on lessons. Assessments have the editing features which they like, and essentially that looks like we can drag and drop assessment items. So if we are taking it out of a chapter, it would take the assessment item right out of the chapter as well. And it's really just talks about how the teachers can customize the presentation of the content. We have used TCI in the district, so I know if you go back to what we're piloting, we did not choose to pilot TCI because it's something that we had already been familiar with. We had already been using it at the middle school based on teacher resources, and at the high school, we have been using it in our core curriculum. So we did not want to pilot it because it's something that we were very familiar with. When everything was said and done, we did not feel that any of the competitors rose to meet the level of expectation that we had versus our information and our experience with TCI. So that's why they came through with this recommendation.
Okay, so that sort of tacks on to what Dan was basically saying.
Mm-hmm.
So really you were not necessarily piloting TCI because we already had TCI, but they were under consideration.
Yes.
Are there other vendors besides TCI? If you go back to that one slide.
Sure.
One of the things that, as a board member, we just want to make sure that everybody's doing their due diligence.
Yes.
So I guess a follow-up question for me is, okay, so this is what you're reviewing, but, these are the pilot column. There's another column there that's.
Ancillary materials.
Yeah, in my opinion, that you're also evaluating, but they're not new to the district.
Yes, exactly.
So.
Yes.
It'd be helpful to have that information.
Okay, definitely.
It's also worth noting that Pearson is the one who produces all the tests.
At the state level.
Yes.
Yes.
Today.
They write the tests, they
Today,
grade the
exactly.
tests, they write the curriculum.
While they're still in favor.
And they were very present at our conference last weekend.
So just as a quick follow-up, I have an amazing group of people right next to me that are telling me 1994 is when TCI really started. So that's without an earpiece. It's amazing how that works. We've got The age of cell phones, everything is right at our fingertips. So let me try to come back because I think it gets to this point of why are we making this recommendation? What does it look like? And then what are some of the very serious things that we need you to consider before we move into making a recommendation for adoption? And that really talks about some costs that would be associated with these materials. So as you can see on this slide, the K6 Studies Weekly is a print magazine and it has online access. So that would be every one of our students could use this in class, at home, with parents. Every teacher has got all of the materials they would need. And the class set of this is $39.30 for a year. So there's a lot of benefit, and I think our teachers have been thinking about what does that look like. So when we go K through 6, you can see the cost, and that is the cost for a 6-year subscription. So that is something where we are not trying to have an additional cost beyond this. This is the one-time cost. We're hoping to enter into a 6-year commitment with Studies Weekly, and that would be the ultimate cost to the district right now. When we think, sure.
I'm sorry, can I just ask so it's $115,000 paid now? Because I would be worried any of these companies can go away in 4 years and they still owe us 2 years of material.
Yeah. The way that we usually work it out is we'll prorate that, and that is a certain dollar amount each year.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
So we just kind of lock in this price, and then we have the contract, and it says it's going to be, a fifth of this every June, or a sixth of this, or something like that. So we do budget it with that. Yes, and that is one of the things too. So we purchase this, and as they're printing it, in 2 years they update, then we're going to get those updates. So it's not also going to lock us into the same concerns that we had with the textbook, where this was going to be our resource, and even if they change it or they need to make some modifications, we're stuck with it. That every year this is going to be a new shipment to us. For the grades 4 through 11 with TCI, again, this is print and online. We are doing class sets, so we are not trying to get an individual textbook for every single student. Our plan is actually to get about 35 textbooks per student. Right now, we schedule at about 25 students per class, so that leaves an excess of 10 textbooks per classroom. So they can still be checked out. Students that don't have access at home can have a textbook checked out to them. But once they have that online subscription, really students are going to be able to access the majority of that material through their online account. And again, that's as we're thinking about using our Google Classroom, as we're using Google Docs, as we're trying to be able to adapt to our new Chromebooks, we're really trying to make sure that the resources align with our investment in technology as well.
How about multiple languages?
So all of these, with our Chromebooks, we can actually use the Google tools to read it, to translate it. That's one of the benefits of having some of our Google tools, is it can be done. There might be some, and I'd have to go back and check in each one of these materials if there is a different language already translated, but I can find out if it's in multiple languages.
And the teacher's textbook, I assume, is different from the classroom textbooks for the students?
So for the TCI piece, there is a teacher edition of that, and it is a teacher online as well. So it is a one-time cost that is wrapped up in this total cost. So it gives you your class set for your students, and it gives you your teacher materials.
And this is for 6 years?
Yes,
Also.
yes.
And we would divide that up over 6 years for cash flow reasons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then you can see our AP, which is a smaller number of students that really are wrapped up in that. The thing about it is it might be smaller number of students, but those textbooks are much more expensive. Again, when we think about how much a college textbook costs, that's really the cost that we have with our upper level courses. So those are usually a pretty significant investment for our department.
So Bob, how does this compare with what we've spent on the other curriculums?
That's great. So when you think about this total amount, this is about 3/4 of what we spent on an ELA adoption. And I think our math adoption, because there was a lot of consumable materials in our math, it was something that had a larger cost to it as well. So we had our math textbooks, but then we had a yearly renewal of our consumables, our work texts. So there's a little bit more dollar amount associated with math. The ELA, there was just, there's a lot of materials because of the number of books, because the number of novels that came with the books, the number of, it's not consumables, but it is those, there's 7 novels in one grade level. So it's just, there's additional cost with an ELA adoption.
And how does this compare with other curriculums that we evaluated?
So this is actually a significant savings over other curriculum that we purchased. When you think about a $9 a year student cost for the Studies Weekly, that's essentially what we're talking about. So even over 6 years, that's a $54 investment in a text. Textbooks usually come in around $97. If you bundle that with an online subscription, you're probably up around $127 per student. So this is just as a way to give you a little bit of an understanding of where that is. TCI materials, they actually are, they're in the business of the online world. So their textbook is a $15 textbook because they've started to see people don't want textbooks, so they buy just enough to get the class set, plus some, and then they move with their online. And again, I think it's a lot easier for those publishers to maintain and update that curricular material than it is to try and print a text.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there an upper limit on the number of classrooms or the number of students in these contracts? What happens if we have, a massive boom in students? I'm being optimistic.
So we try to plan for that. And so I know that we've looked at some of those demographic trends. Even I remember sitting here last year with you guys looking at those same for building capacity. So we use those same reports, and then we did about a 15% overage just in case. So our second grade, I believe, is our largest grade. We've got about 430 students, and so we use that. We use 450 as the number moving forward. So we tried to look at the highest number based on our enrollment reports, and then we went off of that.
And that means that in all likelihood, we will have extra textbooks for those children who don't have online access at home.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's what I was getting at. Because we're like,
Definitely.
okay,
Yep.
do we get to a point where all of a sudden we don't have enough books?
Yeah, and again, I think the benefit of the programs that we're looking at is even if we do need to go back to TCI and say, yes, we need additional costs, we're talking at a very nominal cost. So even sometimes we'll have, textbooks that get lost or damaged, and we're able to replace some of those without coming back and doing a major adoption. Even building funds have some of those dollars available to replace textbooks.
Okay, thank you.
One of the other components that we really were excited about is putting in a geography supplemental. So actually through a PTA grant last year, we were able to get a giant traveling map. And again, thinking about we want our students to experience history, we actually thought that this was a great investment. These are our students participating in it, is looking at trying to understand the geography of the world with these really large maps that would take up the gym, but then students get a chance to move around the maps and play with the maps and really try to get an understanding of spatial relations to where things are. And so we would like to also add these giant maps as an additional resource within our core adopted materials, and then we can share these between all of the buildings. So
Do you know what projections these maps are using?
I don't.
You're taking the world and slicing it up into, 6 chunks. I'm just wondering how they work.
Yep. I can definitely find out. We can find out about what the map projection is. Mm-hmm.
So would you be, you said you're going to put these in the gym. Are you incorporating this in PE?
We hope to.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, PE, health, music, whatever really makes sense as we start thinking about more cross-disciplinary instruction.
It won't be musical chairs, it'll be musical countries.
It's true.
This could be a lot of fun.
It might be. All without shoes, because it's definitely, we're not going to let
These
kids.
are printed vinyl
They are
of
printed
some sort?
vinyl, yes, exactly.
So I'd be curious to know how, if there's any way that we can measure if kids are really using their Chromebooks and if they're accessing things at home versus in the buildings.
Yeah, we usually can run reports based on a usage report that will tell us how many times a student has logged in, and it will give us even windows. So it will say, between, we might be able to do it like an 8 to 3, and then see what happens outside of that window. So we definitely look at how many times students log in, how long have they been logged in for. Those are all things that we can track with their online access.
Yeah, have you done that in the past?
We
With
have
other curricula?
Usually they're coming from our supplemental materials. So as we have some additional, it is core and supplemental materials. So even our study island, which we would consider to be a core instructional tool, we can see how long students are engaged in that material. Yes.
I think moving in the more online world makes all the sense in the world. I mean, my kids are just, freshly out of Heights, and they've been in classrooms where there's a shortage of books. And there's really not a lot of interest in getting new books because you're changing the curriculum. But that was sort of, kids were at a disadvantage because of that. Always being able to go online to get anything you want is the remedy if our kids have the tools and the know-how to get there. And that's sort of what is somewhat foreign to me. It would be nice to have a way of measuring and then sort of doing a baseline and then sort of like comparing that over a period of years. I mean, is this really taking root? Is this really working? So I don't know if that's something that other school districts do or if it's just.
I think we can definitely take a look at it. I think it's, we want to get the most out of our investment as well. And if students are struggling to read, for example, on an online text because they can't interact with it, even though I think we have tools that allow them to interact with it, some students still like to highlight, or some students really want to take notes in the margins. And so I think that we want to be able to be as flexible with that as possible, or show them some additional tools in our Google Suite for how they might be able to do that with an electronic text. Okay, so that concludes our social studies piece, and I wanted to just kind of follow that same format, even though I think it's a lot more brief when we talk about our Spanish piece. But we do have a Spanish committee, and really this is our world language teachers. Just to bring you up to speed, we spent some of our dollars in previous years to bring our Chinese program up to speed. So as that Chinese program continued to grow and it moved into the high school, there was a need for us to have a curricular materials for them at that point in time. So right now, it didn't make sense for us to wait 3 years and say, well, just hold on and good luck for 3 years. So that's why you don't see the Chinese language wrapped up in this, because we've already purchased the materials that they needed in order to kind of work all the way through our elementary, middle, and our high school Chinese program. We also offer French at the high school. They are included in this world language, so I have been talking with our French teacher, Ms. Woods, to see what it is that she would like to use. It's a little bit more challenging when you're a department of one to think about a committee, so we've just been really looking at what she's been using and what does she like, and we've piloted a couple of things and we've had some conversations together. So we'll continue to work through that as she comes to some conclusion about what she would like to use. But our Spanish teachers really span K-12, pre-K through 12 actually, and they were the ones that came together to look at what are the needs of the department in Spanish. So they created their own priorities, obviously thinking about the alignment to the state standards, student engagement through speaking and conversation, and this was a really big difference. And as we looked at the old Spanish materials, there was a heavy emphasis on vocab and conjugation. Where the state standards have moved is really thinking about conversation and being able to communicate. So that is a whole different ballgame. I know even when I took French, I spent hours conjugating verbs. And I think that that is a shift from where our current thinking is around world language instruction. And so a lot of it is much more listen and repeat, watch some videos, look at the engagement. How would you be able to survive in that country if you went there? That's really the goal of our world language program, whether it's French or Spanish or Chinese. So the really big important part is talking about student engagement through speaking and conversation. The consistent instructional resources is really big, and you'll see that play out in the recommendations. And then the complementary online audio and video resources were a really big component of that as well. So we spent some time looking at different materials for Spanish. You will see that there's a publisher named Santillana. There's also a publisher named Sonrisas. And then we also looked at something, Calico Spanish in Cambridge at the K2. And you might ask yourself, what does Spanish curriculum look like, K2? It's a lot of songs. There's some, movements. There are things that are not text bound. There is never going to be a textbook that we would want to purchase because, one, our students have access to their Spanish classrooms, maybe 4 times in a quarter. So this is not something that is what we would think about normal high school kind of instruction. But we really want to give kids something that is memorable, it's energetic, it's going to get them singing some songs. And we think that the materials for Sonrisas, level 1 and level 2, are going to be the best materials for that. Now grades 3 through 5 and really moving up grades 3 through 12, we did pilot the Santillana program again because it is a comprehensive program. It's actually used in most Spanish-speaking countries as the way to teach students Spanish. So one of the benefits is this is not something that we're kind of out there thinking like, well, is this a quality material? One of our current Spanish teachers taught in Texas in a Spanish-speaking school. She said, yes, we use Santillana in our instruction because it's the premier program for Spanish-speaking people. So I think that they're heads and shoulders above where many of the other programs were just because of how they are spread so far throughout the globe around Spanish-speaking peoples. And I think that played out in our review of their material. So you can see that we did pilot some different things. The Vistas program was reviewed. Some of the challenges, even with the Spanish piloting, was publishers were not even in a position to give us materials or even preview copies. So that tells us a little bit about their ability to fill an order. I think that that's a really telling statement when we say, yes, we wanted to pilot them and we weren't even able to get materials to take a look at. So it tells us a little bit about where the company is, and I think it talks about some of the vetting that we did even prior to choosing our piloting partners.
Do you know which companies we've been using currently?
I don't know the name of the textbook off the top of my head, but I can find that out for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, do you know if this is like Latin American Spanish, South American Spanish, which is generally more Portuguese, so that's probably a wrong question, or is it more like Castilian true Spain Spanish?
I'll have to investigate that for you as well. I know that our native Spanish-speaking teachers have talked about it from they have the Latin American piece to it, but they've also talked about some Colombian pieces. So now you're really testing my memory of these meetings, because they've actually had some great dialogue around if you're in Latin America, you're going to say it like this. If you're in Venezuela, you're going to say it like
The
this.
letter Y,
Yeah,
the
they
letter
talk
J,
about it very
there's a
specifically.
whole lot of things that change quite dramatically depending on what country you're from.
Exactly. And I think that from their standpoint, this is enough to get you started, and then even some of those regional dialects are things that you can see. The beautiful thing about the Santillana program is it is meant to serve like a passport expedition. So students are learning about these Spanish-speaking people by looking at the countries that they're speaking Spanish in. So, at one grade level, you might be going to Colombia. Like, that's the whole intent, is we're going to learn about the language by looking at things in Colombia. And then you might go to another one and you're going to say, great, this is a different country. And so what does it look like there? And so the videos, the dialect, the speaking, even the culture pieces that come out are regional. And it's meant to be almost like a, where in the world are you as you're listening to this Spanish speaker?
So it addresses regional differences?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let me make my note about the current textbook.
Yeah, for both French and Spanish, though I think the French curriculum at the high school there's multiple sources that don't quite talk to each other properly.
Definitely. I'll look at that and I'll get that back to you. So when we went through, we also did some professional development. We had multiple opportunities for our vendors to come in during the PD days to share with our teachers the online version, to make sure that they were using the resources and so that they could really evaluate the full complement of the resource. This is very similar. We did complete the evaluation per the board policy. This is something that we do in any adoption that we do, is we have our teachers rate all of these different components. We did this for the social studies, and we've got the survey results. We did this also for the Spanish piece as well. So we can definitely talk about how this plays into the adoption. And then the recommendation for the adoption is pre-K through 2. There was that hope to adopt the Sonrisas Spanish. It is really just the curricular tools for the teacher. There isn't a textbook or a workbook. It's something that is meant to be, there are placards and posters, so kids can be engaged in the poster piece. Grades 3 through 5 is the Santiana Descubre, and then 6 through 12 is the, again, it's the Santiana program, which is Espanol. And we have got our Decord French, is our desired product for French 1 and 2. There is some overlap into the third year French, still using that same resource, and then moving into our APs with Vista Learning, TIMAS and TEMS. I think it's the same word in different language. So.
Yes.
Sorry. So those are the recommendations. When we look at where we are for the costs, again, the Sonrisas is the cost only for the teacher materials. The 3 through 12, which is all of the different grade levels and the teacher materials and the workbooks that come along with it on a consumable basis. You can see the price there. And then our advanced placement, we're still working with our publisher to get the exact cost. So that's something that I can definitely continue to update you as we move forward in this process.
Questions?
Would the contract be front-loaded, so it's heavier in the first year than the subsequent years?
I think a lot
Or would
of
you
it-
be able to
yeah.
divide it up evenly over the 6 years of the contract?
I think that what we usually will do is look at that contract, and then we'll talk with Scott and make sure that it can all be budgeted, either through the Ed Services budget or through our textbook funds that get set aside each year. So I think we usually will work together on that part.
It'll all be fine.
And then I had asked Bob earlier that just none of these are associated with workbooks that add cost to families. So all of these costs are the entire cost of our adopting them, and they don't add anything to school fees, which I think is very important.
And that is one of the things that, even as we look at some of our elective offerings like Spanish, I know that students have been asked to purchase textbooks in the past. And I think that as we've moved forward, we're trying to say, we want to build that cost right into the core adoption of our materials and say that that is something that is right there for our students to be able to use.
Will you be looking at sign language curriculum at some point in this planned process? Back at the very first page.
So I asked our sign language teachers if they wanted to look at a curricular material like this, and they don't.
Okay.
They believe that the majority of their curriculum is them videotaping themselves and using their technology that already the district has purchased. So at one point in time, they did say, yes, great, we don't want a textbook, just go ahead and get us a production studio. So that way we can go in and so I'm like, great, we can talk to our CTE teacher, or you can use her production.
We have a department that does that.
But it is that idea
Those
of
kids are good.
they're the creators of their content, and that department feels very strongly that they're the ones that want to own that curriculum, and they're preparing students. And obviously, I think something's working well with that department at our high school. It continues to grow, and so many of our students are having a tremendous amount of success as they've come out of that program. So they are not looking to purchase something at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
So Bob, tell me this, is French still offered at the middle school level?
French is not offered at our middle school currently. French is offered 9 through
Just
12, just at the high school. And we do have, I talked about Ms. Woods, but also Ms. Robb, who is the department chair, also speaks or can teach both Spanish and French. So there is like 1.5 teachers that can kind of split between Spanish and French. All right, thank you so much. I will see you again in May, but if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one other item. Earlier this year, remember I brought to you, or I informed you that we were reading the book Wonder.
Yes.
Our students. So, and we were looking for an opportunity to bring the author to the district. We were hoping, but that's not happening. But we were looking for an opportunity to bring the author or someone from her network to have a family literacy night. We're calling it Wonder Literacy Night. So we received confirmation today that they're going to send someone from the publisher company. And that event is going to be on May 10th at the high school. So we'll be able to have our families and our students in just one big district literacy night with a publisher, someone from that. I think it's going to be the book editor is actually who's actually coming. So just remember, this is the book that we purchased. The district actually purchased this for our students, and we did this one for K2 because the elementary principals they wanted them to have a very expensive picture book. And they, oh my gosh, these books are so expensive. To go back to Bob's
So is
points.
that a picture book version of
the
that
book,
novel,
yes,
the
yes.
YA novel?
Mhm. So our students, 3 through 8, have the actual book Wonder. And if you go to some of the schools, where was I the other day? And they're reading it. They're getting ready for. They wasn't sure if we were going to be able to pull the event off, but students are reading it. But this is the one that we got for the elementary principals. All said, no way, Jose. We want our kids to have this version. And so we were able to use some discretionary funds to provide these books for all of our students in our elementary and our middle school.
So this evening will be
May
a K,
10th.
a K-12 or K?
Actually, it's a K-8 night,
K.
but we have our high school students who are going to be able to participate by reading to students. I think we're going to have a puppet show. We've just got different activities that are happening all in one night. So it'll be a chance for you guys to, and the speaker will come and speak in the auditorium too, for families, if the families want to ask questions about the book. We really tried to get the author, but the author decided that she's only going to go certain places. And we were going to do a video conference, but they decided they would send someone. And so we're going to take care of that too. So just want to let you know that we pulled it off. So thank you to those who went. And Karen Heinsberg is working with all the teachers to make sure that that we get this opportunity for our families. So we're excited about it. It's something I believe that they used to do in the district years ago. A literacy night, did they? Yep, years ago. So we're kind of bringing it back, and I think
Bringing
this is a
authors
good
in
way,
is
especially with this book, because I think this book really, when we talk about expectations for our students and how the students make good decisions and all of that, that was something that we really wanted, especially in this climate. And if you ever seen it, read the book or saw the movie, I mean, I think it really teaches kids compassion. So I think it would be a good opportunity for them to not only read it, but just families to engage with the author or someone from the team about this book, so.
I think it's also a wonderful opportunity. We've had authors in. There's a fantastic YA author who was a Cleveland public school teacher named Shelley Pearsall. And she came out, and it really opened the students' eyes to, hey, there are careers around this, not even just the writing of it, but editing, publishing. So just meeting somebody who actually does this is important in and of itself, above and beyond the story. There's sort of the life after Cleveland Heights schools.
Well, I know that several of the elementary buildings have had building literacy nights for a long time, and those are, big activities. I love the idea of having a district-wide event that is of the same sort. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yep. So, yeah, great idea. Great. That's it for me. Good.
Treasurer's report. We have the 5-year forecast for approval. It's the only thing that I have for the treasurer's report tonight. And very quickly, do you want a motion for that, or do you want to go into a couple of things?
Let's take a motion. A motion to accept the 5-year forecast.
So moved.
Second.
The one difference in this forecast from the previous month is that we have some actual numbers, well, as close to actual as they'll be. They will fluctuate slightly through the end of the year, but for the community school deduction, Ed Choice voucher deduction, and the Peterson autism scholarship deduction. So those numbers have changed slightly. Interestingly, if you compare this forecast to the previous one, the community school deduction is now down $400,000, but the Ed Choice voucher is up 200 and the Peterson is up 200. So it's about a wash overall in terms of dollars, but still we're talking 2.5. So that's 5 3/4, 5, 6, 7, $8.5 million. Yeah. Of deductions going to these various voucher programs. So that's the one change from this forecast to from the previous one. And as we've discussed before, some of the changes we'll see in the next 2 months will be as we get the final property tax receipts in, which should happen next month. We're seeing them trend higher, so that's a good thing. But we have some questions into the county as to why that is, so we can understand and know how to forecast those out. And there was one. Our interest income is trending a little better than it was before, or that we would have anticipated. And we also cut off the purchase orders for general fund just before spring break, which we tend to do. We assume that by this point in the school year that folks have more or less encumbered or bought those things that they would need. And we do allow purchase orders through the end of the year if there's an issue or an emergency or something that's unanticipated. But at this point, we can start to close those things out and get firmer numbers to see where we'll end this fiscal year. So within the next 2 months, you're going to see some firmer numbers there, and we'll drop actuals into fiscal year 18 and then move out from there.
Now, I remember you talking about the relative switch of community schools versus other vouchers. Over the past few years, there's been this sort of replacement of one with the other. So is this more of the same, or is it of a different order of magnitude than what you would expect?
This seems to be a little different, and so we're going to have to look at some of the detail to see why, or if we can identify where, because you do see that number trending down or being slightly close to where it was before, particularly for the community schools, but this drop of $400,000 is an interesting thing that I think we need to look and see what that is, because that does seem to be an anomaly, and I'm not sure whether that's a trend that's, so what we've done is kind of assume that number to remain constant then in the out years right now, but I don't know if that's an accurate assumption or not, so we need to try to
It
look
could
at
go
that.
back up to its
It could go
previous
back
level,
up to
you
where
don't
it was
know.
before,
Right.
sure.
It does seem to me, though, that society in a whole, as a whole, is catching on to the falsehood that surrounds the charter industry. Just that there's so much in the press these days about the false promises, the empty promises, and students, there's now enough data to show that, unfortunately, so many of our students who engage in online, in particular, charter schools, are ending without any measurable instruction.
Sure.
Especially in mathematics. That doesn't go to all charter schools, but certainly that is the trend. And it seems to me that just the American society as a whole is just, the word's out.
I just hope that some of those children come back to us.
Yes, and
We will be
ideally,
happy
we'll
to
see
have
that
them.
trend even
Yes.
continue that
I mean,
direction.
in order to have a meaningful experience in school, I mean, it's not only just going to class, it's all the extracurriculars, it's the sports, it's the, I mean, how many
Well,
kids
right,
tonight do we
what
hear
did
about
the AFS
VMD?
kids say? It was all
VMD.
about being with other kids and having these experiences and going on adventures. Yeah.
So, Scott, we're losing about 8.3 million from our budget to Ed Choice writ large. I'm also looking at the five-year forecast, and it shows that in fiscal 2020, as currently budgeted, we show about 1.5 million in the red. So a couple things come to mind. Just that, it is worth pointing out that were it not for the state removing $8.3 million without our permission from our budget, we would not be in the red until 2022, as currently. And in fact, you could make an argument that those students who should be with us, who we want with us, are making other choices, that it would bring quite a bit more. But my question actually to you is specifically, we've got a little bit more than a year between us and the start of fiscal 2020. Schools in Ohio cannot operate at a deficit, unlike other governmental agencies. So my question is, are we going to, at some point, it seems to me that we need to, at some point, start talking about, are there austerity measures that we should be implementing now to, with the hope of extending so that we can go through fiscal 2020 without going to the taxpayers during that, that soon, and perhaps spreading it out. So the idea is, do we implement something now that's going to be, wouldn't impact curricular issues, and would put it off another year? And when will we, if that is the case, if we are going to do that, when will we start talking about options?
Agreed, and I think that you're right on in terms of the fact that the sooner you make those changes, then the less difficult they are, because then you have multiple years of savings. So some of the things we have implemented already, I know the superintendent and I both have had that as a goal since the last levy passed, to, even though the millage was calculated and the dollars were calculated to last 3 years, that we would try to make this a 4-year cycle. So some of those things that are trending positive. So the receipts that we're seeing for property taxes. So we've had some favorable health care renewals over the course of this levy cycle, and some of the 80% of our budget is staff. So there have been staffing reductions that have happened that have all been favorable. I would expect to see this $1.5 million once we close out this fiscal year. We won't see that, and we'll see a positive balance there. But even then, we'll want to bring in some out years and start to have that conversation. Okay, so what does, even if we do delay that levy another year, what does that millage look like? Because it's always a combination of what do you want to see in terms of a reasonable amount of millage and what is a reasonable amount of cuts to make, or austerity measures, to use your term. So, so once we have this fiscal year closed out and know exactly where we stand, which is July 1, then we will be having conversations with all of you to see what that looks like and where we might go from there. So that's a good question, though, because you're absolutely right. The state will not allow us to operate in a deficit, and in fact, we've already had to, for the last couple of years, submit a plan to the state because they want to see exactly what our intentions are, even if we assume that we will put a levy on the ballot and it might be for this amount of millage. They want to see that we're looking forward, and that's one of the purposes of the 5-year forecast as well. So we will absolutely be coming to you sooner rather than later to talk about those
And I think,
things.
I'm sorry, and I think when we talk about some of the decisions we've already made with sustainability, and we look at our strategic goals, I mean, that part of that is, let's kind of reduce some of the fat.
Right.
So that we can, the goal all along was, let's reduce our costs as much as we can, and then show the community that we are good stewards. Just like we got this award tonight. I mean, I think that's big, but we can, we know there are some expenses that we have to make. We know we have a large number of special education students in our district. I think it was 17%. So it costs a lot to educate special education students, but the services that we provide, we want to provide those for our kids in this community. But we are being responsible, and we believe that we owe it to the community to see why go back every 3 years if we didn't have to. But we know, again, we have to address, and I'm glad the board is addressing, that we can't continue to see $8.3 million go out the door either.
That's right.
You got to kind of balance that as well. But as Scott said, we'll keep chomping at it and updating you.
Thank you.
It would be helpful when we get these in advance to have a better understanding of what's changed.
Yes.
So is there a way that you could color code something or give us, I guess at a bare minimum, a listing of what's changing?
Absolutely.
Or maybe a layered spreadsheet that you provide to us?
Yeah, I can both highlight any of the numbers that have changed, but also provide a narrative so that you can see exactly what the difference is.
Okay,
And you'll remember this is actually the first change we've seen in a few months. It's been pretty static.
Well, it's just that it's really hard to line them up
but
together on the
understand
screen
it
and
is.
read them.
So
It's
we
like-
can.
And that was my trouble too.
I know,
And it's-
I had to move to
Yeah, and
bigger
sometimes-
computers.
Yeah, and sometimes you gotta print them out, and it's like, well, that's sort of defeating the whole purpose of
Agreed.
what we're trying to accomplish here. And we want to make it easier, so when a member of the public comes in and looks at this, they get it.
Absolutely.
Without having a better sense.
Understood.
So,
Will do.
It's great that you include this. It's well appreciated, so. Any other thoughts, questions?
So the 5-year forecast is submitted every 6 months, twice a year.
Yes.
October
and May.
And May.
Yes.
So we look at it every month.
Correct.
Which I think is a fantastic thing that this district does, just to keep it ever present in our minds and in the community's mind. But tonight, we are actually voting, well, in a minute, we will be voting to approve it.
We do approve it as well every month, even though we're looking at it, we do vote to approve it, we just don't submit it to the state. So next month in May, in addition to asking you to approve the 5-year forecast, I will also then take that extra step and submit it to the state. But thank you for clarifying that.
Want to call the roll?
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Serini?
Yes.
You done, Scott?
I am.
Okay, so the president's report. It's great that the district is providing the board the middle school weekly updates.
Yes, thank you for those.
Perfect, it's getting, and it's helpful to hear Karen speak and just get us, a better sense. It was good to see in this recent one that there's a tentative date for the forum,
Yes.
the 24th.
Yeah, April 24th at 7 p.m.
And do we know what the format of that's going to be yet?
No, they're meeting with Lisa Hunt on April 12th, and they're going to finalize that, and then we'll update you again, so you'll know.
One of my big concerns is there's, I think, a lot of people that want to speak their mind. Is this going to be an opportunity? And this doesn't have to be answered right now.
Right,
I'm
right,
just
but
throwing
right,
this out.
yeah.
I mean, is this?
But I'm almost certain it's not going to be that type of meeting. I would anticipate it would be something that people can participate, maybe at tables and have some, maybe tabletop discussions or something. But again, we'll follow up, but I'm almost certain that would be it. Maybe just some conversations at tables facilitated by someone is what I would think it will be. Yeah, because I think at this point, as Karen stated, that we have a plan in place. We're updating the board of what's happening. I think if anything, they just need a process, and maybe they can get some more community input on some things that they would like to see. I think anything different from that, I don't think would benefit the school at this point.
So each table's facilitator would be gathering back.
I think, I'm not sure, but I'll follow up after the meeting on the 12th.
Okay.
I'll provide that information to you in your Friday report of what the format and what it will look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have an opportunity to have our work session beforehand. Maybe you can give us an update then.
Correct, yes.
So
Mhm.
we'd be able to provide some feedback too.
Right, okay.
So that would be good. I thought the work session was really valuable. Heard a lot of positive comments from pretty much everybody that work is being done to address this challenge, and it's great. And again, it was great seeing, Karen here.
Yes.
Stepping
That's
up and
good,
expressing her concern and,
Yeah.
validating good decisions you guys have been making to take this on. Permanent improvement funds. So you shared with us information on the website of nice chunks of where the money's being spent. This is a long time coming. It's great to see. It would be helpful, I think, to have the Bond Accountability Commission report back. Just maybe give us an update of what's going on. Now, maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be through the back. Maybe it could be through some other source. But, where do we stand, for example, with the middle schools now? I mean, we do get updates. I know there's some, we all have our own little sets of things that we'd like to see addressed, like the roof and the cupolas in the buildings. Where are we with those kinds of things? Where are you with decision-making for the next school year? Which was in their chart. But and one of the things where the bond accountability, the FAC, I think, it didn't work out to at least my standards, is there was not a lot of interaction. There was a lot of work that was sort of done in a vacuum, a lot of good work that was done in a vacuum, but it never really got to the board. You've got good people on there, they're making some great decisions. I think I'd like to hear what they're doing. Now, I know we've got two people that sit there, just listening and observing.
And participating in the conversation as well. We're not that quiet.
Good. So it would be good to see.
At the moment, we are scheduling our next meeting.
There seems to be a lot of back and forth about that right now.
Well, it's a larger group. It's hard to get everybody at the same table.
It's got to get done.
Yep.
So, for our April 17th, there is some information that the district has shared with us regarding the Ohio facility construction stuff.
Yes.
There's a lot of materials we need to read through on
Yes,
that.
and we have a presentation from, I think it's Tuckerman, Jeff Tuckerman?
Jeff Tuckerman,
Yeah, who's coming.
Okay. We have 2 retreats that we're trying to plan. We know we've got a board planning meeting in June. It's a little regrettable we can't meet a little bit sooner on that, but we all have crazy schedules. But trying to get this building utilization committee sort of preview work done is important. I know Caroline's been sharing dates on that.
Yeah. So we just keep working at it. It looks like now, nothing before, looks like May 7th is the earliest that everyone, well, I still don't have your dates in Beverly's.
I sent my dates.
So send your dates and then we can confirm. It looks like
Well, I
nothing.
already did. We
Okay.
were already,
Oh, May 7th is not good for you.
no.
Okay. So it looks like the earliest that we can meet would be May 11th,
Which is a Friday.
which is a Friday.
Well, I think one of these dates was being held for a back meeting.
Yeah, well, and Molly came through those 2 dates.
Well, one of those was on hold because of
for
a
the get back meeting.
bond
Oh.
accountability meeting.
Okay.
And that date, I think it was April 26th
26th.
or something, it sounds like it's not going to work for a significant number of people on the BAC, so that may be open anyway.
Okay.
So it'd be
I'll check it.
ideal if we can do April 26th.
Okay. All right. I'll follow up, have Caroline follow up tomorrow morning. So if you just send me your dates, Beverly, just send me, okay. See if
Yeah,
that
that's
gets
Because I think we could all do that, and
I
that's going to be an evening
thought I submitted
meeting.
some dates to
You did?
Caroline.
Okay. Okay, I'll check. And if we get yours, if that may be the date, April 26th may be the magic date.
That would be ideal.
All righty.
I was hoping to have a resolution regarding House Bill 70. I don't have it done yet, but I will be done shortly. So we have some board goals that I want to start ticking away at, and one of them is the diversity training that I thought we as a board should go through. And, Dr. Dixon's been working with me on this. You've taken the lead, and this REI, the Racial Equity Institute out of North Carolina, is, I think, the group that you
I think we're going
like
to
to
use
work.
the one that's out of Cleveland, that's working with Cleveland
Yeah.
Neighborhood Progress.
Right.
So we have, I've been speaking with Tanisha Briley, and I will send you dates tomorrow. I've sent you, is there a link in your packet? Looks like July 11th may be a good date that we can have a half-day session with the board and council members.
What day was it,
I
July?
think it's July 11th. And I'll confirm that tomorrow. It's a half-day session. But I think it would be a great opportunity to get some context around equity and inclusion.
Okay.
And would you think that half-day's a morning
I think it's the afternoon.
or an
I'll follow,
afternoon?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just,
So it'd be
I'm
the
about to
board,
block
right.
it out.
So what we're doing, we get the board and the council, and then Tanisha and I would take our teams. So it would be our cabinet and her direct reports will also do a piece. There's a 2-day training in addition to that. But we thought the 2.5-day training would be too much for the board members. So we said at least a half-day training would be good.
And for
But you,
whatever.
for some, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll send
If
you
it's over the
those
summer
dates.
in
Yeah, if in
particular,
the
I
summer,
would
if you can do, right, okay.
Look forward to any of it, all of it.
Are we engaging University Heights at all in this, or thinking about it, or at least saying we're doing this and you might be interested as well?
I'm not, but I will reach out to
Michael?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It would be nice to include him.
It would be.
So we have a tentative meeting with University Heights
Right.
later this month.
Yep.
Yes.
It'd certainly be a good agenda
Yes,
item.
okay.
Yeah.
So there's 2 other things that I think we need to be tackling. One of them is the superintendent and treasurer evaluation. We are going to get this done by the end of June, as opposed to having it delayed many months. And there's several forms, processes that we can use that work well. There's one, for example, on the First Suburbs website.
I just went to a session on this very topic this weekend at NSBA, at the National School Boards Association Conference.
Yes,
So I have
yes, did
other
I.
forms that we can look at as well.
So every other Friday morning, Jody and I meet with Dr. Dixon. Can we put this in our agenda
Yes.
to kind of talk about a form that we'd
Okay.
like to use? In my briefcase, it's tucked away in there, and I'm not going to go get it. I have my committee assignments, but two of you, I believe it was Dan and Jody, we're going to take the lead on, am I right? about
Yeah.
this?
that sounds
For
right.
me anyways, I can't
Yes.
speak for
Oh,
you,
happy
but
to
yeah.
do
Yeah,
that.
we're going to take the lead on that.
Mhm.
Obviously, we're very much part of the process.
Right.
I just need someone to make sure that it gets finished and remind us to get it done and make sure that we got the right things going.
Okay.
There's another issue that we need to talk about, which is our attracting and retaining families.
Huh?
We've got a lot on our plate right now, so that's going to be something I want to talk about next month. Jody, I think you're also on that committee too.
I am.
We really want to get this superintendent thing done, because that's one of the most important things we as a board can do. And we need to make sure it's timely. All right. Do we have any unfinished business? New business?
Molly, were you gonna?
You go. I'll
Okay.
get ready for mine.
All right. Yes, thank you. As was just alluded to, we just got back from the NSBA conference in San Antonio, which was a wonderful opportunity for the four of us. I think I can speak for us all. It was such a wealth of information that's still sort of settling in. I attended, actually tried to attend two sessions. There were a number of them, but I attended a session on how to ensure that our message, our needs are effectively communicated to the bodies who we need to hear us. The legislature, the state school boards, et cetera, just about sort of honing our message and that whole process. And it reminded me a great deal of our February 26th Heights Coalition for Public Education meeting, which was a very local, fantastic presentation where we had a number of state leaders, et cetera, in helping us improve at making sure that our message is being heard. And I've been reflecting on our last meeting here, which was our work session on March 20th. And it seems to me that we may have some work to do with our own operation as a board and making ourselves available to be heard as we are trying to sharpen our abilities. So we need to get better at being available to be heard as we are trying to ourselves be heard. On the 20th, we had a large group assembled of community members and parents and members of our professional teaching staff and students. And they were here on a couple of different issues. We had that wonderful MSAN presentation, and we had people here who really wanted to share how, we had parents here who wanted to share how they've seen MSAN influence their students. And we had a number of parents here who wanted to be heard on how the middle school's climate is similarly having a very, very profound impact on their students as well. But unfortunately, our agenda did not allow for the community to be heard. And I think that in the Heights, that is a significant flaw. I think that this community has a very long tradition of always hearing from the people. And I think that we as a board, I think, need to make sure that whenever our citizens want to speak, we are available to hear them. And so, to that end, to help us be more available to our community, I am proposing, I will motion that we add an agenda item to our work sessions. And that agenda item is simply a public hearing. Our work sessions are often thought of as opportunities for the board to learn. We gather on a subject or two, and we study something deeply, and we have conversations about them, et cetera. And I think that this is a very logical extension of that, whereas, it is an opportunity to learn from our constituents, from the community. So I will propose that we add that as an ongoing agenda item. There may be concern that it will add time to those meetings. That's something that I'm certainly willing to have extend a meeting. So that's my first. My second separate issue is that I would also propose that we add new business as an ongoing agenda item for work sessions. And for me, that's just a very practical issue of it will help the board be more nimble. At that meeting, I proposed that as a new business item, we allow the community to speak. And unfortunately, there is not a new business item on the agenda that would have allowed me to make that proposal. So I think that in 2018, when things happen so fast, an agenda that's set on Friday is sometimes, things have changed by the time we get to the meeting on Tuesday. And so having a new business, the opportunity to raise new business, will simply make our board, I propose, more nimble and able to better address those changes that happen so fast.
Okay, so just procedurally here.
It's one at a time.
Is this, is the way that we set the agendas, is it tradition, or is it actually sort of codified in board policy? Do we know?
I mean, having how many meetings, or the actual what happens at the meeting?
Well, yeah,
So-
so
I
like,
believe it's policy. but
Well,
let me
no,
check.
the district has to have one business meeting per month. So that's in policy. That Cleveland Heights, I think Scott said since he's been here, they've had 2 meetings, and one is a work session. So some districts don't have I don't think your district has a work session.
They are now.
They are now,
They're
yeah, but a lot of.
most
yeah.
months.
Yes, some
Yeah.
they don't.
I think
but-
they decide at a regular session whether they're going to have a work session in a
Right.
couple of weeks.
So what we've done is outline to the board, pretty much to try to give you in advance what all of those work sessions would be, those topics. So you're not finding out on Friday what's going to happen on Tuesday. You know in advance what's going to happen, what that topic is for that month. So if we need to change, so like last month, we were supposed to have equity. So we changed and moved them to next month. So I think it's a good practice because it allows the board to have a deeper dive on a particular topic. And it gives the opportunity for community members to kind of watch the board study a particular topic. Having new business, a public comment? I mean, I think we could hear from your perspective on that. I'm not sure, Scott may have some input. I'm not sure what would that add, value to a meeting of a topic that we're discussing? What would that do, to have, I think it could be, and I know the board meeting is your meeting, and I don't want to influence that, but I just want to make sure if we're going to have a special meeting, work sessions on a specific topic, that the board is really engaged in that work, and not distracted by something that may distract you from that particular work. That needs to be meaningful work.
So we sort of reenacted and I'm not even sure if this is a policy, but I mean, typically the board president sets the agenda. I mean, that's a typical Robert's Rules of Order kind of thing. And usually it's done in concert with staff, which is why Jody and I meet with you every 2 weeks to kind of come up with stuff. And we realized there was some concerns with the middle school. We wanted to get those addressed, and we tweaked the agendas in order to deal with that. I mean, I guess we're discussing this. I guess that's what we're supposed to do. I mean, I want to make sure that we don't actually, I don't think we're going to need a motion to make this kind of change.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. That's my gut. Because I do think these work sessions, although we notice them, they are driven by a particular topic, which we tell the public in advance. So if someone's interested in that topic, hey, there's some issues at the middle schools. That's why so many people come. But we also have guests that we invite to work with us. And we have staff members that kind of come in to support that. So if we're doing work in addition to that of what's going on in that work session, I almost feel if we are going to change this and give the opportunity for people to talk publicly, which generally is not about something that we're in that meeting about, they're just venting or praising or whatever it may be, we do that after. We do that at the second part of the meeting. So we have our work session. When that is done, then we allow, if someone's got a concern, such as the microphones aren't loud enough, you don't have to email us right away. You could speak.
Absolutely. I will tell you that I did some sort of surveying the neighboring districts. Public comment is on all of Shaker's work session agendas and all of Beechwood's work session agendas. It's not on South Euclid's.
But don't we give the public an opportunity to speak at our meeting?
We didn't on the 20th.
We do it at regular meetings, not at our work sessions.
Okay.
So the first of the month rather than the third of the month.
Right, I have the policy pulled up right here as it is, and it says that we do it at regular meetings. This is what's in our current bylaws, that we have it at every regular meeting. Any person or group wishing to place an agenda item, meaning on other meetings, shall register their intent with the superintendent no later than 5 days prior to the meeting and include name and address of the participant, group affiliation, if and when appropriate, and the topic to be addressed. And then such request shall be subject to the approval of the superintendent and the board president. And then it, goes through that.
And that's actually what we should be doing now when they come, that we don't do. We kind of let people.
We let people sign
We
up
just
the
let
day
people
when they
sign
come.
up and come, but that's referencing, we don't, I think we.
Well, there are two different,
Well,
there are
that's if
two
they
different
want-
things. There's
yeah,
there's a
two
requested audience, and there's statements from the audience.
Right.
So
Right.
the requested audience is what you're referring to,
Yeah.
which is
5
if-
days in advance.
And
Right.
so that's
Yeah.
over and above the 5 minutes that we allow anyone who shows up
Right,
for the
right,
meeting.
right.
So if someone wanted to give a 20-minute presentation on a certain topic, they would submit that in advance, and then the board president and the superintendent either approve that or not. Otherwise, anyone comes and speaks for 5 minutes
Right,
on any
during the
topic they
regular-
choose. Yeah. So, but part of the issue with, and I can follow up with Michelle Beechwood or over at Shaker with Brian, is I'm assuming that when they accept public comment, it's only on the topic that they're addressing, because, the open meetings law prohibits, for a special meeting, as Jim alluded to, you must say what the topic is that you're speaking about.
Right.
So that people can come if they're interested in hearing about that or observing that. So, so the board, at your pleasure, you could allow the public to comment, but I suspect that would have to be related to that topic, because if they came and talked about whatever and took you in a different direction, then you would be violating the sunshine law by discussing something that wasn't noticed properly. And similarly, just having a standing new business item would, I think, do the same thing. So we could get a legal opinion on that, but based on my reading of the sunshine law, I think that a standing new business that would allow you to, would allow you to be nimble, but it would also, I think, run us afoul of that. And similarly, if people started talking about other topics and then you had some conversation about that, I think that could be problematic too.
But already, like in this meeting, we had the opportunity for someone to make a public comment. And, there's a reason why the board doesn't discuss every public comment
Right.
that comes at it, because it's not noticed. It would seem to me that would be, if we were to use that model and also include that as something that's included in the work sessions, that would be okay. I'm not a lawyer, though. We would need, or someone that understands sort of the intricacies of
Yeah, because
this.
your regular meeting is a different animal entirely from a special meeting in terms of content. So your regular meetings, you can discuss anything you choose, and that's why there's always that opportunity for the community every month to come and have a conversation about whatever it is they want to present to you. But a special meeting is for a particular purpose, and that's why many districts, as the superintendent said, don't have them. Or they may, or don't have a standing one. So this district is not typical in that way, that we've, in all my years here, have always had a standing special meeting that we call a work session for a specific topic that's decided generally in advance what that's going to be. And then if you'll notice on the notices that we send out for that meeting, we identify exactly what that topic's going to be, and that's what it is. So,
Well, and I'd like to remind people, or, we should be reminding our community that they don't have to wait for a meeting to come and speak. They can email us, they can
They
call
can.
us, they can engage with us, at the grocery store, and they often do, which is great. So I'm frankly a little surprised at how quiet the email is versus people coming for public comment. There's plenty of people who don't like to speak in public as well. So I would like to remind them, you're always, welcome to email us, talk to us, give us a call.
But one of the things that you're trying to achieve is you're trying to change the perceived culture of how people perceive us.
Yes.
And there's been a culture in the past of stoicness. And a lot of it is driven by lawsuits, past lawsuits
statute.
and statutes. So it would be curious to see how we can change the perception, make sure people know that we want to hear, we want the feedback, the good and the bad. We want to hear this. I also get frustrated. You talk about new business. I would love to have an unfinished business part of these work sessions, because we are here for almost 3 hours now. We have the consent agenda. Granted, the first hour was listening to the kids.
Right.
That can't change. That's the kind of stuff we need to do more of.
And the consent agenda allows us to do that.
And that is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
But there's a whole bunch of board goals that
Yes.
that
We
we
need
want
to
to
sit
try
and
to
pound
do.
through, yeah.
And we want to pound through them, and talk about them and see what we can do to make a difference. I'd love to be able to see those, and just trying to schedule this, as we know, is terribly difficult. So if we're in an hour work session that has been on the calendar, I'd love to dig into half the things on my list tonight that I don't feel like we have the time to talk about. So why don't you talk to one of our lawyers and get back to us?
So your recommendation is that or you're looking for a way, first of all, to increase, any opportunity for public participation at a meeting, but also in your estimation, because I'm wondering even if we notice the meeting in such a way to say, this is the topic that is intended, and board goals. That would at least provide you the opportunity to talk about those things, or people would know you're talking about board goals if they wanted to listen.
Yeah, but
Also, to have people, at least at the conclusion of a meeting, have an opportunity to comment on those topics you're discussing.
But nothing we'd be voting on.
Or even discussing.
Yeah, okay.
Because, if I may, so we had, let's say 50 people here last meeting about a topic that very important to them, very important to all of us. They were not allowed to be heard. They were not allowed to be heard at the meeting. We have just established that the next meeting on the same topic, are people going to be heard? A moment ago at this table, we just said no. There will not be public comment at that meeting as well. I think there are people in this community who want to be publicly heard on this topic.
Did they come to, they could have been here tonight?
They could very well have.
Yeah.
And
one was.
And one was.
Right, and that was a very important summary to get.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I would feel much more comfortable looking at members of my community if, when we hold a meeting on a specific topic, we allow the community to be heard. I really think that any other posture is not the posture that I'm comfortable with. It's not the posture that when I was out there campaigning and I was talking about issues of transparency and issues of listening to the community and guiding this district based upon the input of the community. I'm disappointed that, well, the future hasn't been decided, but I am very interested in this board really reaching out to the community and showing them that we are serious about these things.
Well, I have to take a little exception to that, okay? And it comes down to the fact that I was pretty darn proud of everybody in the room. Everybody in the room, not the people that were just sitting around the huge table, but everybody that showed up, that expressed an interest. I was proud that we were able to work with staff and pull together that meeting and having the principals stand there. Some spoke, some didn't. And we were reacting to things that we heard on the street, and we wanted more information. There's been many years where you didn't see that kind of action, okay? And I am loving the fact that staff stepped up. I love the fact that even tonight, Karen was here in a very positive way.
Absolutely.
Was able to, positive and constructive way, was able to sort of deal with the issues from their perspective. I love the fact that Dr. Dixon and her staff is also sharing with us in a constructive manner. Just hiring, for example, the additional monitors, which frees up our principal's time. The way I look at it is I see Jeff Johnson walking up and down Cedar Road, which is the same thing that Brian Sharosky did in my neighborhood when he was the principal at a middle school to just make sure the neighborhood and people were okay. I love the fact that we've got principals that are stepping up and really doing something besides sitting behind their desk and relying on their people to do stuff. They're the people that are doing stuff. The problem, though, is we're at a stage where so much is overwhelming at the time. having monitors do that kind of stuff and having, a principal do it is really helpful at this stage. They could work with staff. So, I don't know, let's see how this works. And I think this is, this is good stuff that you're bringing up. I'm really happy that we've gotten to ourselves where we don't think what we're doing is even good enough. And I thought what we did, that workstation, was really good. Pushing it to be even more fluid and more transparent. I want to see we're transparent anyways, but
I have a thought, and I don't know whether there's any legal differences between public comment at the beginning of a work session versus public comment at the end of a work session.
It's a good question.
It's a question,
I'll
I
ask
don't
it.
know.
Yeah, right, because it really
The
doesn't
lawyers know
specify-
this stuff, the rest of us don't need to.
Yeah.
well, it's like as a courtesy tonight, we had the representative from Columbus here.
Yeah.
She had to get back, and
She needs to go first. I mean,
yes, so
that
she
makes
went
sense.
first.
Right.
And likewise, I know many of the construction meetings we've had contractors and people come in. Do they have to sit through this hour presentation of listening to our kids? They're not interested. We're interested in that.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
But you don't want to keep the kids waiting. So there's
It's
a balance.
It's
So
always a balance. But, if we notice a work session as being on topic A, and people are interested in listening to what we're about to learn on topic A, is there value, is there legal ramifications between having the public say something about topic A before versus after? I don't know.
I'm assuming based on what I see, no, but I'll clarify that. It's just this notion that for a special meeting, discussing matters at a special meeting that were not disclosed in the notice of the meeting is a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
So
and that's very
the
explicit.
comments would have to be on the same topic
same
as
topic.
the work
I see,
session
yeah.
in order for us to be compliant.
But I'll find that out because I'm hearing what you want to accomplish, so
Yeah.
we'll see what we can do.
yeah, we have to be real careful with this. This isn't something that there's a local person that has sued other local entities besides us for not following that. And we don't want to walk down that path.
Correct.
It's late. Any other items?
Yes.
Thoughts? Okay.
I just wanted to give everybody a small present.
Is it dinner?
Yes, dinner would be good.
So,
Thank you.
we obviously came back from a very engrossing and inspiring
Thank you.
meeting in San Antonio
Thank you,
with the
Molly.
National School Boards Association. And these are for everybody. These do
Oh,
not
nice.
come from said meeting, but
Oh, this is great.
you can pretend.
Thank you, Molly.
I love the picture that you guys sent me. It looks like you were having fun.
It was.
I didn't see that
yes.
picture.
I
Maybe
didn't
that's
see that
Craig.
picture, no.
So that conference was such a wonderful opportunity for us to, one of the problems that we ran into is that we all wanted to go to the same sessions, but we were very, very careful. We really talked actually about the fact that, we are here serving the district, not our own interests. And so we split up. We very rarely were there more than one of us at a session because we wanted to get a taste of the wide breadth of topics that were there and then share our experiences. So, as always, I'd just like to say for the sake of saying it, that thank you to our community members for providing the funds that sent us on this, to this conference, and it is money I believe was well spent because we are better trained. We have learned a great deal.
And divide and conquer works.
And divide and conquer works.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was a excellent conference, and what we've done in the past is just give a little small report of what sessions that we attend, and then we can just make that public to each other. So, and just bring it back to the board.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd be
Because
happy to
we
do
all
that.
did have the opportunity to go to different sessions, and we had different experiences. And I think we should share that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that.
And we had a good time.
We sure did.
Yeah, we did.
Could have been warmer.
It could have been warmer.
Yes.
Okay. Board committee reports, do we have any?
The BAC is trying to schedule its next meeting. There was an agreement that April 11th was not necessary because much has come up. But rather than wait 2 months, we're trying to schedule something on the 6-week interval, and it's proving to be mightily difficult.
So the trick is you need to get those dates well in advance,
Yes.
locked down.
Yeah.
So.
The policy committee met today, again, and because there are a plethora of policies that we will be reviewing, I made the suggestion, I hope that you're all okay with this, that we split it up into 2 different sections instead of getting a giant amount of policies that we have to review in a fairly short time. Can we get a half of them, and then we'll have a rolling schedule where we'll review half and then the other half. So Paul Lombardo is going to put together a calendar of how that will work, because we have to have 3 readings of a policy. So that way we'll know, we'll be
Is that
reading the
3
first
readings of
section.
300
And then we'll
policies?
start, so there may be some overlap as to which ones we're reading, but I thought that was better than us getting all of them all at once and trying to review them all in about a 2-week time frame.
Right.
So hopefully you are okay with the recommendation I gave Paul today.
I trust your judgment entirely.
Okay, so I'm moving on to correspondence and announcements. I have an announcement. I am unable to attend the regular board meeting next week. I've shared this information with all you guys in an email. I will be someplace between Denver and Kansas City, driving my daughter to the West Coast.
And I have an announcement. I will not be at the work session next week, but I can call in if you can provide me a number. I have to travel for work. I'm on the
So we-
17th. I
Oh,
won't be
okay,
there.
okay,
And
yes, okay.
Jim's is
Jim's at the
the,
regular
Yeah.
meeting in May.
yeah.
In May, okay.
We have an official spelling bee team for the Reaching Heights Spelling Bee.
We certainly do.
And
Gotta win it, we gotta win it, guys.
President Jim Posh is our alternate. But we do expect you to cheer mightily in the audience, just saying. The spelling bee is Wednesday, the 18th, starting at 7 o'clock at Heights High. There's a cram session for anybody who wants to eat grapes and drink wine at my house Sunday at 3 o'clock, the 15th.
And Bob
You
is a
should
judge, you
mention-
better, hey.
You should mention,
Very good.
this is the first time, I think, that the board actually has a team that is the board.
I think
So-
you're right. I think the board has always
So you're right, it's
sponsored a
always-
team,
Correct.
Yeah.
but this year, we're just putting ourselves out there.
Sounds like
Yeah,
it, right?
so the
more
team
accessible, Dan.
is
Being more accessible.
Malia, Dan, and Beverly.
All
Yep.
right.
Have we announced the name?
I'm out of town, so.
Oh, you have a name?
Yes?
Molly, would
What's
you like
your
to
name?
announce our name?
Oh, well, our team is called Tiger Nation, of
Yeah.
course. Roar.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Beverly?
I heard a yes.
Second.
I move to second that.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Posh,
Yes.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Serini.
Yes.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.